illegally are American citizens. They're the ones who are driving the trucks.
Yeah, I mean, he's putting an emphasis on the arrest of supply, isn't he, rather than looking at demand, perhaps?
You need to do both. I have long been a champion of taking down the drug trafficking networks. There are people who are making millions of dollars peddling poison that is killing our people.
That's all from North Carolina, and the first in an assignment series, Drugs Overdose Hope. The producer was Tim Mansell, and assignment was expertly mixed by Hal Haynes. Next week we're in Nevada to explore why this remains a US state where the number of people dying from narcotics is still ticking up.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live on location this morning. Our community studio is Stella's on Grant at Kenaston in the strip mall here, 1895 Grant. So thanks for joining us. Why are we here? Well, because of the name of the street I just mentioned. Kenaston, Route 90, is about to undergo Shovels in Ground 2027, one of the largest development projects when it comes to street construction in our city's history. 6 lanes, 2 St. James Bridge spans, or at least that's what the city's saying is going to happen. But this morning on the show, we're going to hear from residents who say they've been hearing that for years. Some of them have been actually not just hearing it, but been told that they may lose their houses because of this construction. Others have been waiting for better active transportation corridors. And of course, this is all about the cars. 78,000 of them cross these bridges every day from the south into the center of Winnipeg. The mayor will be here, and we have a full show about the widening of Kenaston. Welcome. You're on CBC's morning show, Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. As I said, I'm Marcy Marcusa here with Corey Funk. We have Darren Marash, Sierra Sanders, and Abby Adiyemi back at CBC on Portage Ave. And that's where Heather Wells is with your news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg father Clint Levesque is moving on with life after the conviction yesterday of his daughter's killer. That from his friend and a local anti-domestic violence advocate. Claire Levesque, who was 24, was murdered by her boyfriend in Scotland in 2024. Yesterday, 41-year-old Aaron Pearson was sentenced to life without parole for 25 years. Lauren Proto is frustrated the system didn't do more to protect Levesque. Manitoba's child advocate says more supports are needed for young people impacted by wildfires, including children and youth evacuated from their home communities this summer. We're going to hear more in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, this place doesn't open till 7 o'clock. So behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see the empty tables. But they're ready to hear from a lot of folks. We're going to be joined by residents in the first hour here who live on and near Kenaston. They have a lot of concerns about what expanding the roadway could mean for them and their properties, as mentioned, but also for the wider community. Also, we're going to start the show after 6 with how we got here. As I mentioned, this idea goes way back. Remember 2009 when the quote-unquote final plans were being voted on? Stay with us for our show in community.
Today on Q. Jeff Wall is one of this country's most acclaimed photographers. His work is shown around the world and sold at auction for millions of dollars. He'll be here to tell you what happens when your dad builds you a shed to draw in when you're a kid, and why he doesn't mind if you don't remember the names of his pieces.
It's better they forget them because that's a symptom of them having made the picture for themselves.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. We begin with the housing market. After several months of recovery, new data released this morning shows the national increase in home sales has officially peaked. The Canadian Real Estate Association, or CREA, reports sales dipped last month for the first time since the spring, but there are surprisingly strong signs of life in some of the country's biggest cities. Lisa Xing has that story.
September's home sales were down by 1.7% compared with August. That ended a series of gains that started back in April. The reason for that slump: fewer people buying homes in cities like Greater Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, and Montreal. But the Greater Toronto Area and Winnipeg seeing sales tick up. And even though the Bank of Canada lowered interest rates in September, the Canadian Real Estate Association's senior economist, Sean Cathcart, says we might not see the effects of that rate cut until later in the fall.
We might see it show up in October. We certainly did see that happen last year, where October was the month where things really sprang to life.
Even with this dip, the number of sales was still up compared with the last several years. In fact, up 5.2% compared with the same time last year, and the highest it's been since 2021. The average cost of a home nationally hasn't changed much since the last month, but is down about 3.4% compared with a year ago. Now, Korea's economist says some of the more affordable markets in the prairies, East Coast and Quebec are slowing down a bit, while BC and Ontario are starting to pick back up. But while the Canadian Real Estate Association forecasts continued momentum into 2026, there are a few uncertainties, namely U.S. President Donald Trump's continuing trade war, which had dampened its forecast earlier this year and could do so again. Lisa Sheng, CBC News, Toronto.
Health ministers from across the country are meeting in Calgary, taking stock of Canada's healthcare system. They're looking at what's working, what's not, and what needs some critical care. Senior health reporter Christine Burak has that story.
In my view, we are moving from a narrative of crisis to a narrative of hope in primary care.
Danielle Martin is a family doctor in Toronto. Ontario is promising to connect everyone with a family doc within 4 years. As Canada's health ministers meet face-to-face in Calgary, Dr. Martin says it's an opportunity to learn from one another and do big things.
A real pharmacare program, one that covers essential medicines for all Canadians, could be a solution not only to the need for nation-building programs, but also to the affordability crisis for the millions of Canadians who can't afford to take their medicine right now.
Alberta's health minister didn't provide an agenda for the meeting, but healthcare workforce issues are top of mind. Doctors and nurses are pushing for safer workplaces and the ability to work across provinces without needing a new license each time. Dr. Margot Burnell, president of the Canadian Medical Association, is in Calgary.
What it would do, it would allow physicians who live in border communities to practice across borders.
The healthcare system is strained to its...
Rita McCracken is a family doctor in BC. She says provinces paying into for-profit clinics is also impacting workforce shortages.
Increasing access to private options is not going to solve the problem. In fact, it is going to make the problem worse.
She hopes health ministers will discuss evidence-based ideas for improving the system, ideas that push toward lasting improvements for patients and providers. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
No al cambio de régimen.
Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro warns Donald Trump to not carry out a CIA coup in his country. His comments come after the U.S. president publicly confirmed he's authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. The CBC's Willie Lowry is in Washington and joins us. So, Willie, why has Donald Trump ordered these CIA operations?
Well, Angie, President Trump says this is all about limiting the amount of illegal drugs flowing into the U.S. and saving American lives. The U.S. has launched at least 5 strikes on what Trump says are narco-terrorist boats in the Caribbean. By his estimate, every strike saves 25,000 American lives. And he says he's not about to stop anytime soon. He's authorized the CIA to deal with Venezuelan migrants heading to the U.S.
I authorized for 2 reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America.
So it's certainly created tension here, and it's likely to add to the growing friction between the United States and Venezuela. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
It certainly will, and tensions are already high. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accused the Trump administration of attempting a coup against him. The U.S. does not view Maduro as the legitimately elected president of Venezuela. In August, the State Department issued a $50 million reward for information leading to his arrest and accused him of leading a cartel. But the recent strikes, which have killed at least 27 people, have many in the U.S. concerned. Earlier this month, Democrats in the Senate attempted to block the strike under the War Powers Act, but failed. Senator Richard Blumenthal said Congress needs to be better informed.
Congress should demand to know what the evidence is that these boats are part of a cartel.
And Trump brushed off lawmakers' concerns and says the U.S. knows what's on the boats before it strikes.
The CBC's Willie Lowry for us in Washington. Willie, thank you for this.
My pleasure.
The fragile Gaza ceasefire is facing a severe test this morning. Tension is mounting after Hamas failed to return all deceased hostages as required by the deal. 2 more bodies were repatriated last night, but more than a dozen remains are still unaccounted for. Meanwhile, a painful sense of closure has reached the community of Niret. The remains of young soldiers taken hostage on October 7th were identified after being returned on Tuesday. Crystal Gamansing has more from Niret, Israel.
Flags with Tamir Nimrodi's image line the road. People stand silently, shoulder to shoulder on the highway between his hometown and the military cemetery where he'll be buried. Until this week, Nimrodi's family didn't know if he died while in captivity in Gaza. The non-combat soldier was kidnapped October 7th from a base near the Erez crossing. Shahal Sakat drove 20 minutes to view the procession.
I do everything to come for Tamir.
How are you feeling knowing that only 9 of the 28 have been returned?
It's terrible. Hamas don't do what they were supposed to do.
Hamas says the rest are under the rubble and special equipment is needed to locate them. U.S. President Donald Trump says he could give the word and Israel would resume the war. He also said Hamas was working to uphold its end of the deal.
They're actually digging. There are areas where they're digging and they're finding a lot of bodies.
Israeli forensics teams confirmed this morning the last female captive in Bar Haiman was returned along with Mohammed Altrish. Their return possibly the last for a while, a reality that is painful for many Israelis who say they still have no peace. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Niret, Israel.
And Canada's cool climate and plentiful water is making a prime target for AI data center investors. The industry is spending hundreds of millions to add to the 300 centers already operating in Canada. All are looking for cheap power and fresh water to cool overheated servers. Yvette Brand reports.
Every time AI is used to make a video or search facts, it uses energy and water. Every dozen prompts or so to ChatGPT use about 500 milliliters or a cup of coffee full. Data centers like this large Microsoft one under construction right now in Etobicoke, Ontario, can use up to a swimming pool full of water per day for cooling. But senior Microsoft director Alistair Spears says they're working to avoid using that much water by venting in cold air.
So one of the great things about building in Canada and in colder climates is that we can just use free air cooling from outside air temperatures.
Former Amazon employee and Washington water scientist Nathan Wangusi says despite alternate cooling methods, water remains key.
Unlike any other industry, water is like blood to the data center industry.
He's done the math, and he says data industry pledges to cut water consumption for cooling within the next 5 years don't add up.
It is not possible for any of the big tech companies today to meet water positive by 2030 or even 2050 unless they go bankrupt.
As the data center boom hits Canada, city staff must decide if projects are worth any resource costs to their community. This as investors pitch massive projects in parts of the country affected by drought. U of T water engineering professor David Meyer warns.
Canadians that live in dry areas should care a lot about AI water usage. That water is needed for agriculture, it's needed for cities.
And the water use and runoff of AI data centers can also overwhelm city infrastructure that Myers says relies on pipes laid long before anybody envisioned this thirsty new industry. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live on location. Our community studio today is Stella's. We're out at the location at Grant at Kenaston because the show is about Kenaston. So thanks for joining us here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, Kenaston's just out the window of this restaurant here. People can see the cars passing by. You might know how many? 78,000. And that is why the city says they need to expand the bridge spans here. They need to widen Kenaston to 6 lanes. But we're going to dig into how we got here this hour. This project has been on the books for decades. Our City Hall reporter will join us this half hour on our show. Also this hour on the program, to another story, artificial intelligence isn't just changing how we work, as you've been hearing this morning, it's changing who gets a chance to work. We'll hear more about what that might mean for young people trying to land their first job. Stay with us. Kenaston residents will also be joining us to talk about their concerns. Corey Funk on location with me here. Heather Wells is back at 541 Portage Avenue, and she's here with our headlines.
Good morning. 2 men are shaken and recovering after being shot in an armed robbery at their home-based jewelry business. It happened last week in the Maples. Rajan Dalla runs that store. He was shot 7 times during the robbery. He says thieves made off with about $1 million in gold. We'll hear more about that. Part of a building some have called a division between North and South downtown is no more. The atrium of Portage Place Mall has been torn down as True North Realty Development Corporation begins shaping that area's future. We're going to hear from some Winnipeggers coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Heather, it's interesting because yesterday Corey was talking about that on the air going by.
Yes.
And how different it looks. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I was thinking he just meant that the inside was demolished, that you could see through the windows straight through. And then I'm watching the news last night because I hadn't been, up the road that way on Portage. I just hadn't happened to drive that way. And I'm seeing what you're talking about, right? The separation that's beginning now and walking through. And it's going to be so interesting to see how it impacts all of us.
Yeah, and Edmonton, a street that had been dead-ended at the mall, is now going to, go right through as it used to.
Yeah, so people will be driving back and forth. It'll be like back in the day, but super interesting. I know we'll hear more in the news, as you said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Today, if you are driving anywhere, you're going to need your windshield wipers. If you're walking anywhere, bring an umbrella. Here's our forecast. Cloudy periods of rain beginning this morning. We are expecting 5 to 10 millimeters. Winnipeg's high is 11 degrees. That rain's going to continue tonight. Risk of a storm, 5 to 10 more millimeters of rain. And then tomorrow, showers. So a wet couple of days here. Brandon, you're looking at a similar condition with a good chance of showers. Risk of a storm today. The rain doesn't go to the north until Friday night. So in Thompson today, increasing cloud, and you are expecting to have a very different day. I'm actually looking at tonight a low of 1. I think I've misplaced Thompson for today. Pardon me. We're going to get that for you in a moment. Right now, let's go to current conditions. Winnipeg, cloudy and 9 degrees. In Brandon right now, it is misty and it's 7 degrees. And currently in Thompson, it is cloudy right now and it is 5 degrees. Well, we all kind of traded hats today. Corey's busy, of course, out here directing and tacking the show. I'm covering weather, and that means Abby Adiemi is covering traffic.
Yeah, Bradley. Good morning from this end. Nothing to say, nothing to report much as morning traffic still moving smoothly. But you need to watch out for northbound delays at Archibald and Provencher. The left turn lanes closed for construction through the week. Expect northbound delays, and also on Kenaston, northbound lanes between Stella and Lyon and Taylor are actually down to 1 lane during the day, and you might notice some crawling during rush hour. But you see anything in traffic you want us to know, give us a call, 788-3093.
Well, Abby was just talking about traffic. Today's show effectively is all about traffic and how we get around the city. And the mayor says that widening Kenaston, that's why we're at Stella's, Kenaston and Grant, is not a nice-to-have project, is his quote. It is a project that has got to be done. So we wanted to look at why and how we got here. So get out your best grunge outfit, because we're going back a few decades to start the show today. That is because we asked our CBC Manitoba City Hall reporter, Cameron McLean, to dig into the archives and tell us how we reached today on the threshold of one of the city's biggest infrastructure projects in history, being in next year's budget with shovels in the ground in 2027. I spoke with him yesterday. Hi, Cameron.
Hi, Marcy.
So, how long have we been talking about widening Kenaston?
The idea of widening Route 90 goes back decades. Traffic volumes have exceeded thresholds as far back as the 90s. But it really gets going in 2012 when the Transportation Planning Study formally recommended widening Kenaston Boulevard, citing the high traffic counts and the deteriorating public conditions. Successive mayors and councils have made it a priority, but it's been delayed by costs, land issues, and funding uncertainty.
And I know there's no shortage of opinions, as we're hearing the show today. But you even went back and found archive tape before that 2012 Transportation Planning Study, tape from 2009 about Kenaston?
Yeah, the city's been proposing various ideas for widening Kenaston Boulevard since the early 2000s. And yes, we found this tape of reporter Sean Kavanagh and then host Terry McLeod talking about what was then billed as the final open house to choose a plan for widening Kenaston 16 years ago.
Hundreds of Winnipeggers dropped by an open house at the Blue and Gold Room last week to get a preview of what Kenaston Boulevard might look like in a few years.
A lot of people are concerned about the traffic noise, so we're proposing noise walls wherever they can fit. In some cases, they'd be noise walls in combination with berms. We've heard a lot about concerns about pedestrian and cyclists on the roadways.
There's a limited amount of funds, and if people are willing to pay more taxes, I guess we can afford more infrastructure for a bigger bridge. But
I don't know a heck of a lot, but getting a little bit more traffic down Kenaston faster is good.
So you're not on the list for expropriation?
No, I'm not.
Man, listening to those voices, obviously some of those concerns are going to be echoed this morning. To the last point, though, we heard there, to make this happen, there will be some properties that have to be expropriated. What do those numbers look like in the latest plan?
Yeah, so there are at least 78 private properties that the city needs to acquire. And the plan has currently set aside $5 million in the 2026 budget to begin those acquisitions or expropriations. There are also about 50 Department of National Defense properties and 14 city-owned properties that the city also will combine to make this plan happen.
Now, that is because how they want to widen Kenaston would actually go on to the land where you're talking about. So just remind us here, where this expansion goes from sort of street to street.
So the widening will happen from Taylor Avenue to Ness Avenue, and they're going to widen Kenaston to 6 lanes, 3 in each direction. They're also going to replace both spans of the St. James Bridge, which opened in 1962 and is nearing the end of its life. They're also going to be upgrading sewers in the area, and the current construction window is to start in 2027, and they expect it to take 5 to 6 years to complete. Around 2032 to 33.
And what's the need for this then? If you look at that widening Kenaston, how are they measuring, why this is needed?
Well, essentially, it comes down to traffic demand. The St. James Bridge carries 78,000 vehicles per day. It's one of the busiest roadways in the city. The condition is deteriorating. The bridges are deteriorating. They need rehab or replacement within the next few years. And then there's the trade corridor. Route 90 is part of a national trade network linking the airport, Centerport, South Winnipeg, and the perimeter. And also safety. Chronic congestion and collisions have happened. The design was intended to reduce bottlenecks and improve crossings.
There will be people listening this morning that aren't in the south end of the city. Maybe they're in the north part of the city and they're asking why this bridge, St. James Bridge, and not the others that are older, like Arlington, which has been closed, is still closed, or the Louise Bridge, which was closed just, I think it was in the summertime, went through that. They both need to be rehabbed as well.
Yes, certainly. But I spoke to Finance Chair Jeff Brawadi about this recently, and he explained that the St. James Bridge is unique both because of the volume of traffic that it handles every day, as I said, 78,000 cars a day, and also there's a lack of alternative crossings over the Assiniboine, whereas he says with the Arlington Bridge, people can take the McPhillip Street underpass or the Salter Bridge. With the Louise Bridge, you have the Disraeli or the Redwood. With the St. James, there's not really anything close by, he says.
So you've mentioned Councillor Brawadi, and I can't help but thinking about, the politics of this.
Yeah, and certainly Mayor Scott Gillingham made this a major priority when he ran for mayor in 2022.
Roads move Winnipeg's economy. Most Winnipeggers are drivers. That's why I'm announcing my big move. We'll expand Kenaston Boulevard and build Chief Peguis Trail Extension. We'll add more buses to our transit route and add more bike lanes. It's all costed and realistic and will be financed through a dedicated tax so you can see your value for money.
I remember that when Scott Gillingham was running for mayor. So he brought up cost. What is this going to cost? Because those numbers have moved a lot.
Yeah, so when Mayor Scott Gillingham was first running for mayor, the cost was estimated to be about $500 million. Well, the latest figures have that now up to $757 million, $750 million. And the mayor was saying that there's a business case to be made, that the city would ultimately make money in the long term. But critics have said that it's an extremely low return on an investment for the largest infrastructure project in the city's history. And some argued the long-term maintenance costs outweigh any benefits.
And just in case people are trying to wrap their head around those benefits, some of that is because if you build this, the mayor's case is that you'll attract more businesses. It's a trade corridor, as you mentioned.
Exactly.
Deferred taxes play in.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, is this going to happen? Like, what's the reality of all these plans? So we know that we're hearing 2027 shovels in the ground, but how certain is that, given that I understand, the feds and the province even, they're not committed, right?
Not yet, at least. So the city has targeted 2027, but as you mentioned, that's not guaranteed. The funding model assumes 1/3 cost sharing between the city, the province, and the feds. The province has voiced support, but not pledged any funds. The federal government hasn't committed anything to the program. And in fact, the city has applied to the feds for funding for this project in the past, in 2015 and in 2018. So if there's no deal by 2027, the city has recommended a fallback, which is rehabbing only the St. James Bridge, which they think will cost $221 million. But that would mean lane closures for years and severe congestion.
Thank you for setting up what's going to be a busy day and a busy show about Kenaston widening, Cameron. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So that is CBC City Hall reporter Cameron McLean. I spoke with him yesterday to find out how we got to this point where we are going to put shovels in the ground in 2027. The mayor will be on the show this morning. Our community studio is Stella's. We're at Grant and Kenaston. And still ahead this hour on the show, residents on and near Kenaston, which runs just behind here, of course, have a lot of concerns about what expanding the roadway to 6 lanes will mean for them and their properties, also for their communities. Plus, they don't quite buy it. Some of them are saying that they hear the bridges need to be replaced, but some of them have told us, CBC, that 2 years ago they were at open houses for the bridges when they were told that they had a longer lifespan than is now being shared. So we're going to hear some of those reasons that the people hear. Some of them say that they are feeling like maybe this still isn't going to happen. Stay tuned. That's still ahead.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Time right now is 6:23 a.m. and the rain has started in Brandon now. Light rain there, 7 degrees. Winnipeg, cloudy and 9 degrees. The rain is coming here. We're expecting 5 to 10 millimeters, a high of 11 in the city of Winnipeg today. Up in Thompson, cloudy and 5 degrees. And your forecast for the day is a high of 7 degrees. You could have some fog this morning, and that should clear a little bit later. After that high of 7, a few clouds tonight in Thompson, just because I neglected the forecast earlier for you guys in your city. The rain, by the way, will get to you as well, but not until after it's here in the south. So it should hit you sometime late Friday. Well, let's talk about jobs. It is getting harder for young people to land that first job. More companies are turning to artificial intelligence to handle the basic tasks that new workers used to do. That's raising big questions about how young people are going to find their place in the workforce in this country. Carmi Levy is here, a technology analyst and journalist, to weigh in. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. So great to be with you.
I think for some reason we've lost Carmi, who was with us, and maybe we're rehooking up. So just reaching out. I know Abby's back at 541 Portage. Tell me down the line, Abby, if we're getting Carmi back
hi,
up
Abby.
on the
I
line.
can hear you and I can see and hear.
There, you're on air now,
Marcia.
Carmi. We've got you. We've got you, Carmi. We can hear
Okay,
you
I'm
too.
back.
All right. Everybody can hear that Carmi's back. So let's go to that first question. How's AI changing that first job for young people, Carmi?
Well, if you think of the roles that most entry-level jobs entail, so the routine, everyday, administrative type tasks, data entry, drafting documents, spreadsheets, budgets, things like that, the things that you sit in a corner, you produce, you submit, and then you clock out at 5, those are the things that AI is really good at doing. So a lot of companies are saying, well, I don't have to hire a human. I can get rid of these entry-level jobs and AI will do them. So replace, not complement. The problem here is it leaves fewer jobs. for that initial sort of entry point into your career path. Also, a lot of companies, even if they are hiring, they're not using AI to add value. They're using it to just crank up the quotas. So because you have AI entry-level employee, you're expected to produce twice as many reports because you have the tools. So it was already a tough lift to get that first job. Now it's that much more difficult because a lot of companies haven't really figured out what to do with AI, and they're using it probably in the wrong way.
What worries you the most about companies replacing entry-level roles with automation in terms of, the workforce, and what are young people going to be learning? Like, where are they going to learn?
Yeah, I think that's the $64,000 question. And I say this as a parent of kids in their 20s who have gone through this very recently. These are conversations we've had with them. My concern isn't just that they wasn't just that they wouldn't have a job, have a paycheck, but it was where would they be getting those soft skills? Where would they learn about teamwork and communication and problem solving? Where would they learn about the art of the hallway conversation? How does knowledge transfer? How do you find a mentor and cultivate those relationships? It's these roles where you build those abilities, and it's those skills that will serve you for the rest of your career. You lose that opportunity, then that will have significant impacts years from now. And so the question then becomes, if these roles aren't happening in the traditional manner, how do we ensure that we offer these growth learning opportunities for new members of the workforce in a different way than they might have had before? That's a very difficult question to answer.
It is, especially in a world that measures everything by output. Right, by efficiency and output. Is there a way governments and unions are responding or could respond to protect workers and make sure that those opportunities still exist?
They absolutely can. I mean, we're not going to stop AI from encroaching on the workforce. It's almost like stopping the tide. It just doesn't work. But, governments have a role to play, recognize how AI is impacting the workforce, and then make sure that they have the right resources and programs in place to facilitate that transition. Give incentives to businesses to invest in their people, give them tax breaks, investment matching, all that as well, because nothing speaks like the almighty dollar. And then also have consequences for businesses that simply use AI as a way of cutting. So let be a positive growth opportunity. Mark Carney has already said he sees AI as a key driver of Canadian competitiveness and growth. They have set up the Ministry of AI and Digital Innovation. We have a minister for it, Evan Solomon. They do have a task force that's soliciting these ideas. Create a framework so that businesses know where to go to get all of that. Put it under one common umbrella brand, so that everybody is pulling on the same page, recognizes that AI is a force for growth, not for cutting. And we will have legislation in place by the end of the year. The government promises it's on the way, and that's especially crucial because right now a lot of businesses are just trying to figure it out for themselves, and unfortunately, entry-level workers are being caught. Whereas if they had the resources that they needed, they'll be much better equipped to give these young workers the things that they need to succeed.
And just last, we've only got like 30 seconds left, but can you give some advice to Gen Z preparing for a market where AI is pretty much involved in almost everything?
Yeah, you're the experts, right? You, unlike older workers, you have grown up with this technology, so you are the AI champions. You can be the drivers of that change, and it almost flips the notion of entry level on its ear. But you walk in and you can be the AI mentor. Be more business focused. You're not just producing tasks, and you're not just producing widgets, but you are driving value to the business with these AI initiatives. And so you can be innovative, roll up your sleeves, and be that agent of change. It's a much more visible notion of entry level than we've ever seen before. But like I tell my kids, you can drive the business in ways that I never could because I didn't have those tools. You do.
It's so interesting, right? That bigger thinking that may have happened later in your career. You'd be called on for that expertise
Gotta love it.
The skill. Yeah, it's flipped. All right. Thank you very much, Carmi.
Appreciate being with you, Marcy. Thank you.
That's Carmi Levy with us, a technology analyst and journalist. You're listening to Information Radio. We're live on location at Stella's, 1895 Grant at Kenaston. Our show's all about widening Kenaston. We're going to hear from some residents coming up about how they feel the impact will be, what that will be on them. Also in business news, there's good news on the trade front. Yep, I said good news and trade in the same sentence. Canadian beef is reaching a new market. Hallie Cotnam explains after your news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 9 degrees. Get set to get wet. Showers beginning today, about 5 to 10 millimeters. Periods of rain continuing through the evening. Today's high, still warmer than seasonal at 11. 2 men are shaken and recovering after being shot in an armed robbery at their home-based jewelry business. It happened last week in the Maples. Rajan Dalla runs the store. He was shot 7 times during the robbery.
This pain is a worst pain in the life. Too much pain. I can't sleep from the 3 days, for the pain.
Dalla says he was told by a doctor a shot near his groin could have been fatal. He also says thieves made off with almost $1 million in gold. The Winnipeg Police Major Crimes Unit is investigating, and Dalla says his family now is traumatized. Winnipeg dad Clint Levesque is moving on with his life after the conviction of his daughter's killer yesterday. That from his friend and a local anti-domestic violence advocate. Claire Levesque, who was 24, was murdered by her boyfriend in Scotland in 2024. Yesterday, 41-year-old Aaron Pearson was sentenced to life behind bars without parole for at least 25 years. Lauren Proto is frustrated the system didn't do more to protect Levesque while the two lived in Canada.
Many charges brought against him in the province of Alberta, including domestic violence charges. He never had convictions, but families have come forward. Victims have come forward speaking about the level of violence that they survived.
CBC News found charges against Pearson between 2016 and 2023, including assault with a weapon, but most were withdrawn. Manitoba's child advocate says more supports are needed for young people impacted by wildfires. They include children and youth evacuated from their home communities this past summer. Sherry Gott says the province needs to assess the full impacts wildfires have on them and ensure their mental health, education, and other supports are part of any future emergency planning.
One of the things that we know is that children are behind academically if there's no access to regular education. One of the things we also notice is that the children missed out on their land-based opportunities, especially First Nation children from northern Manitoba.
Gott says the province also needs to do more to prevent fires from threatening communities. The former CTV and CBC reporter hired to run Manitoba's U.S. trade office is earning $387,000 a year. CBC's Bartley Kivas has details.
Richard Madden was hired in June to lead Manitoba's trade office in Washington, D.C. Premier Wab Kinew's office disclosed his salary on Wednesday, 3 months after CBC News filed a Freedom of Information request to learn his compensation. Madden's salary is part of an $800,000 annual budget for the D.C. trade office. He'll earn more than Kinew will as premier this year and close to what Prime Minister Mark Carney will earn in Ottawa. Manitoba Progressive Conservative leader Abhi Khan called this preposterous, outrageous, and absurd.
$387,000 for a career journalist who's untested in this industry.
Kinew's office said in a statement Madden has met with Manitobans and dealt with new trade issues, such as the U.S. investigation of Canadian mushroom exports. The Premier's office said Madden's compensation is in line with what other provincial trade reps are earning. Madden could not be reached for comment. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Part of a building some have called a division between North and South downtown is no more. The atrium of Portage Place Mall has been torn down as True North Realty Development Corporation begins shaping the area's future. Plans call for towers, including retail as well as apartments. These 3 Winnipeggers weighed in on the change.
I think this is the kind of thing that we need down here.
It was kind of shocking. This is the first time I've walked by, though, with everything sort of taken out of the facade.
The Hudson's Bay, the way it's going, and this building as well, if we're starting to use some of these derelict buildings for other things and get them filled up, then I'm all for it.
Portage Place opened to great fanfare in 1987. Urbanist Brian Pincott says it was initially built to revitalize downtown Winnipeg, but that experiment didn't work. The 2 new buildings are to be complete by 2028. Well, the Toronto Blue Jays won Game 3 last night in the American League Championship Series.
This is Victor Robles.
down to Guerrero, and that is going to do it. The Blue Jays make a statement.
Did they ever? The Jays storming back from a slow start. The Jays beating the Seattle Mariners 13-4, redeeming themselves after losing 2 games at home this week. Seattle now leads the series 2-1. Game 4 goes tonight in Seattle. You can find more national and international news coming up at 7 on World Report, and more local news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
It was so exciting.
I know, right?
It was so stressful at the beginning, that game, and then I was like, and then the third inning came, and I thought, okay, what is this about?
I know.
Right?
I actually started going to bed. I was getting ready for bed, and I came out and saw the score, and I went, wow, just in that 5 minutes, I turned my back.
Yeah, it was fantastic. We'll see what happens tonight. All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
We have actual sports coming up after 7 o'clock with Scott Reguera, as always. You're with CBC. This is 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on the morning show. It is going to rain, Winnipeg, and, actually, a lot of southern Manitoba. It already started in Brandon. Let's get into your regional forecast here. We're on location at Stella's this morning, and so because of that, we're at Kenaston and Grant talking about the widening of Kenaston. We've all traded job. So I'm going to cover weather for Abby here because he's busy back in our studios. He's going to have traffic in a moment. Corey's doing nothing. I'm just teasing Corey. Here's Corey. Corey's directing and doing all the teching here on site. All right, weather. Here we go. Rain, as I mentioned, 5 to 10 millimeters, a high of 11 degrees in Winnipeg. Lots of cloud cover. Right now it's cloudy and 9. Tonight that rain continues, risk of a thunderstorm, and then into tomorrow showers as well. That'll be good for all the trees before it turns colder. Our temperature will be steady around 11 tomorrow, and then we get some sun on Saturday finally in Winnipeg. In Brandon, light rain already. It's 7 degrees. You'll have those showers with you through the day with a risk of a thunderstorm, a high 11 as well. Tonight, 10 to 20 millimeters of rain expected, so some significant amounts in Westman. Tomorrow, 5 millimeters more expected. Showers in Brandon and a high of 10. You also, like Winnipeg, by Friday night should start to clear out with sun Saturday. And finally in Thompson, the rain's going to come to you as well, but later. So the system's going to move north after it's south. Cloudy and clearing this afternoon, a high of 7 for today. You could have some fog this morning around Thompson. Tonight, the few clouds for you, and a low down to -3. And then into tomorrow, and that's when we start with a day that's cloudy, and then by the end of the day, you could be expecting rain. And then rain through Saturday, and Saturday night for you up in Thompson. So there's your regional forecast on CBC. Let's now turn to Abby for an update on what's happening in traffic.
Yeah, still the regular early morning traffic outside the window I see, but very soon the usual rush hour traffic builds. Watch out for that northbound delays at Archibald and Provincial. The left turn lane is closed for construction through the week. Expect delays if you're coming northbound. And of course on Salter, if you're on the southbound end of Salter towards Rupert's Land, that's closed for construction until about the 20th of this month. You should also find alternate route. Expect lane squeezes along Grant Avenue near Lilac and Pemina, and of course the ongoing reductions on Abanu Jamaica is still going to be slowing things down this morning. And the last one I see here is on Kenaston northbound lanes between Stella and Taylor. They're down to 1 lane during the day, so as rush hour builds, expect delays in that part of the city as well. So just give yourself extra time, expect detours, and watch out for crews on site. You see anything in traffic, let us know. 788-3093.
All right, thanks very much, Abby. Let's go to Hallie Cottenham now. She's here with our business report. Good morning, Hallie.
Good morning, Marcy.
So you actually have a follow-up to a story we had on yesterday. This is about tempers flaring now and threats flying over Stellantis' decision to Jeep production and moving that to the United States, right?
That's right. Canada is now threatening legal action. The industry minister says Stellantis had agreed to maintain all of its Canadian operations in exchange for substantial financial support over the years, including a bailout in bad times when Stellantis was on the brink of bankruptcy. Mélanie Joly says anything short of fulfilling that commitment will be considered a default.
It's completely unacceptable. So we will fight for these jobs. 150,000 cars made by Stellantis are sold every year in Canada. And so Canadians know what to do when a company doesn't necessarily have the interests of Canadians at stake.
Flavio Volpe heads up the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. He seemed to echo that threat.
These companies making decisions to cower to the White House. Let's make sure that they understand that there are real consequences.
Stellantis still has production, Marcy, in Windsor, Ontario, And it points out it added a third shift to its Chrysler Pacifica and Dodge Charger line. And it says it has plans for the Brampton plant, but it won't say what until it meets with politicians. Meanwhile, a statement from the White House yesterday bragged about that Stellantis investment and credited President Trump. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford had this to say.
That guy, President Trump, he's a real piece of work. He drives me absolutely crazy. He does. And we aren't going to roll over. I'm not going to let him roll over Ontario, I'll tell you that.
Ford is meeting with the Prime Minister today, and he plans to tell Mark Carney, look, if you can't get a deal that protects Canadian industries, then it's time to hit back and hit back hard. That's a quote from Premier Ford.
Here's something that I don't think I've said. You have good news on the trade front.
That's right.
It's been a while. This is about Canadian beef reaching a new market.
Yeah, Alberta beef is now for sale at Costco's across Mexico. So processed cuts from Brooks, Alberta will be sold in 41 locations. 20,000 tons have already been delivered, including porterhouse steaks and prime rib. It's considered a new frontier for Canadian products in a market dominated by U.S. beef. Now, fresh boneless beef is already Canada's fourth largest export to Mexico. It's covered by CUSMA. But this Costco marketplace is considered a major player, especially for high-end cuts. Another good news, Mexico is ending a year-and-a-half-long ban on Canadian pet foods made from bovine meal. So yes, nice to hear some good news on the trade front.
And finally, it is National Bosses Day. So maybe plan to buy yours a cup of coffee. I don't know, fire off a supportive email.
I think that would be a good idea, especially if your boss is a good one. But if your boss isn't a good one, a recent survey found that more people are channeling Johnny Paycheck.
Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more.
Robert Half Canada conducted a survey of 1,500 workers across Canada to ask about the importance of a good boss in the workplace. Sandra Lavoie is a director with the HR company, and she says employees increasingly are prepared to walk if they aren't happy with the boss.
72% say they have supportive bosses, but the balance state, they will be looking for a position before the end of the year because of their bosses. They will quit because of their boss.
And for the bosses who are listening this morning, there is a payoff. 45% of this survey respondents said that communication and feedback from their manager is the single biggest factor in their productivity. In other words, a good boss makes them a better employee. Marcy.
All right, Hallie, thank you for being with us this morning. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Take care.
That is Business News Live here on CBC or with Information Radio 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. So here we are on location in our community studios. Stella's today, Grant and Kenaston. We're going to talk about the widening of Kenaston. The boss of the city, so to speak, is coming up. The mayor of the city of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham, will be here live in the next hour of the show. You've already heard how we got here to talking about this project. And so for those of you who might be saying, why are we devoting a whole show to a construction project? This will be the largest expenditure and the largest undertaking of one of the largest undertakings of a construction project in the city's history. This is both spans of the St. James Bridge. This is widening Kenaston to 6 lanes. This has been on the books for decades. This is $757 million. This is $20 million year over year more than we thought it was going to be last year. So this impacts everyone in the city. Will it be for better or for worse? Well, that's what we're going to be exploring today as well. So we are going to be digging into this. If you want to weigh in on Facebook, please write to us at my Facebook page is Marcy Marcusa Online. I'll share some comments coming up still ahead this half hour. You can also call our listener line, 788-3205. And we have a resident who's getting ready to talk to us here on the airwaves, joining us here at Stella's. He lives near Kenaston here, and he represents a group that has a lot of concerns about actually what expanding Kenaston is going to mean. This is the busiest roadway in the city, by the way. 78,000 cars cross that St. James Bridge each and every day. Well, next, let's have a little bit of music. You might actually be doing this tomorrow night, going out to see Winnipegger Leith Ross, releasing their 3rd studio album called I Can See the Future last month. So this week, they are kicking off that tour with the show. It's at the Park Theatre, as mentioned. From the album this morning, this is Leith Ross with Alone.
All the people I've been in a box in the basement, eyes drawn over like a searchlight, waiting for the ship to come in, 'cause we lost communication. 18 year ready and to be, and it's sudden and it covers me. I am alone, I am alone, I am alone, I am alone, I am alone. Bright young boy grew up in the suburbs and I became a typical young lover, and I loved him so well that he ducked for cover. When he left me, I was less than he had found. But then the wind and the rolling water, then the dull refrigerator light, the writing of the song, and again they are their own, and again they are a daughter, and again there is a silence. What a sound! And it's sudden and it covers me. I am alone, I am alone, I am alone. I am alone, I am alone, I am alone. I am alone, I am alone, I am alone. I am alone, I am alone, I am alone. And even now with my baby in the kitchen, when I am capable of truly listening, there is a whisper in the coldness of the wind, and it's sudden and it comforts me. I am alone. 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 I am
New music from Leith Ross. That is Lone, and Leith is playing the Park Theatre tomorrow night at 8 o'clock if you're heading out for the show or looking for something to do. And you might be, because it's going to be raining, and that always means head indoor and make a plan. Unfortunately, if you're going to the Bomber game tonight, we've got a risk of a thunderstorm and 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. So this always shifts mid-morning. We'll see if they update that. But right now we're looking for the wet stuff. Grab an umbrella if you're heading out this morning. It's cloudy and 9 in Winnipeg. If you're in Brandon, you already know that because it started raining there on you already. In Westman, it's 7 degrees in Brandon currently. I'm Marcy Marcusa. It's 11 minutes to 7 o'clock on CBC's Information Radio. Our morning show's out live this morning. We're at the Stella's at Grant and Kenaston. And we are here because we're asking you to weigh in on the widening of Kenaston, a project that's been on the books for a long time. You've been writing into us everything from Brent Johnson saying, don't do it, full stop. This is foolhardy, backwards, and a bad way to spend money that Winnipeg doesn't have. Instead, we have to actually invest in improving transit, not the system redesign we have, but the status quo budget that's not working, Brent says. We have to invest in active transportation. And then way on the other side of things, Tana Scott, this is way overdue. Traffic on that stretch has been an issue for decades. Michael Honer says, I'm looking forward to faster airport runs from South St. Vital. Kenaston and its widening affect all of us, but my next guest is immediately impacted. Widening this to 6 lanes, the roadway that's right outside the window here at Stella's, is not only going to change the road, of course, it will change neighborhoods. Since the city started talking about this project, residents have been organizing. Larry Jarlis is one of them. He's lived in the area for 30 years. He is chair of the Kenaston Community Network, which helps residents voice their concerns about the project. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here and having us in your neighborhood here.
Yeah, well, Stella's is a part of the neighborhood for sure.
How would this project impact you personally, Larry? You live nearby.
I live nearby. I live on Carpathia, which is immediately east of Kenaston. I'm about 100 meters away from the roadway. I can see it when I look out of my living room window. So affecting me as far as expropriation, probably not, but it'll certainly affect me as affecting all of my friends and neighbors in the neighborhood, because a lot of them are going to bear the brunt of it. Possible expropriation. Also, when you move the roadway closer to them, it's going to drastically change their lives.
Yeah. And I'm guessing the noise will be a factor as well, although you've lived by Kenaston for a while. So noise is not the first thing that comes up, because it's like when you live by a rail line or an airport, you kind of get used to it, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you worried, though, about noise? Because 6 lanes, I mean, it is more traffic.
Well, as it was, our group goes back, it was formed in 2018, and we did noise testing back then.
How'd you do that?
Well, we just contracted with somebody and had it done.
Yep.
And it was it failed the city's ordinance for noise.
Got it.
So we're looking at it now, and we're saying you'd have to look at that situation again, unless you can stop the noise from affecting people. And as I said, we were much further away than what we are now, and to increase the roadway and not put up some kind of a physical barrier there to stop some of that noise, we'd have some problems.
In terms of expropriation, I mean, obviously it's a huge concern. We're going to hear from someone later that's been on the map saying your house is going to be gone, and then off the map, because there's been so many maps over the years, saying, no, you're going to be okay, but Kenaston will come up to your back fence. They're saying now in this plan, 78 properties, 50 owned by the Department of National Defense. People might know Capyong Barracks here. That's likely these Kenaston homes. Some of them are empty already. There's 14 city-owned properties as well. What are your thoughts in terms of how all of this looming over the neighborhood has impacted relationships, either in the neighborhood but also with other people who have vested interest? I mean, you heard me talking about, some of the active transport folks, or, hoping this will happen in a certain way. And has the city done a good job of making sure that is a community conversation?
I don't think the city really looks at the residents and the taxpayers in the area as really being part of this. The communication with them is minimal at best. So I know there's people out there that's saying, well, they say I'm a possible candidate for expropriation, but they're really not saying anything to them. So a lot of them are hanging in limbo, where they're going, do I improve my property? I need a new roof. Are they just going to come and, you use me like cannon fodder and you're out of here and tear the house down? So they're leery of what they can do. And they live with that every day. So it's got a real human factor cost to it.
Stressful for folks.
Stressful, very stressful. It's stressful for families, Kids go to school and kids talk and they say, well, we hear you're moving. Why? Well, they're going to tear your house down for the road.
Got it.
That's pretty hard to deal with.
How do you feel about the price tag for the project? This went up $20 million year over year. It's now $757 million.
And it'll probably be north of $850 by the time they get shovels in the ground, because of the way that the construction costs have increased in materials. We're really concerned about that. We do know that there has to be work done to the bridge spans, because they're ending part of their life cycle where they really need rebuilding and extremely high maintenance. So we're all in favor of that. We're also in favor of redoing the roadway. For the past 20 years, they've only allotted $100,000 towards maintenance, and up to a couple of years ago, they've just resurfaced recently some of the areas, but up to a couple of years ago, people were driving down there and they were blowing tires, breaking wheels, and hammering the suspension components out of their vehicles because there was nothing but holes. So it's good to see that they've done something with it, because it's been avoided for a long time.
You're the second homeowner. We're going to hear from the other one that I spoke with yesterday. I went out in the neighborhood to talk to someone who, that's the person that I was mentioning, who's been on the map for, we're taking your house, we're not, back and forth for years. And she's never spoken to the media before, but she said it's time to weigh in. One of the things she wanted to make clear is what you just said, to maybe clear up the misconception that if you're a resident here or a homeowner here, that you don't want anything to be done to Kenaston. And
No.
that's not what is happening with your community group at all.
No, that's not the case. It'd be a misnomer to say that, because we do know there's stuff that has to happen. There's work that has to be done. I guess the elephant in the room would be the common sewer that runs underneath Kenaston. it's nearing 100 years old, and it needs to be removed and converted to a dual system where you have water runoff in one and waste in the other. Mm-hmm. So that's huge. That means the roadbed has to come completely out.
Do you think they could have done a better job at figuring out the project with maybe less impact? Because I also heard in the neighborhood, from some people at least, that the 6 lanes plus you add the active transport on either side, like it sort of continues to creep into your neighborhood, and that people were saying, well, could there not have been side streets for active transport, maybe like there are in other parts of the city, or does it have to be 6 lanes? Are people on the same page in your group about sort of what this looks like, liking it or not, the current plan? Or
the 6 lanes, and it's been proven in other cities and other studies, the 6 lanes looks like it's going to be great. But then what ends up happening is you have a placebo at the beginning of it where, oh, good, we can get down here and things are great, but it just draws more traffic. And the more traffic that gets in there, after a short period of time, you're going to be looking at people that are just sitting there bumper to bumper and taking even longer to get home. And the 6 lanes, well, there's other things they can do. They can increase turnoff lanes. They can put in indents for the buses to get into. There's other things they can do.
Just last, Larry, do you feel like the city is listening to your group? Because you said sort of mid-interview that you feel like despite residents being organized for years, that still that communication doesn't seem to be clear in both ways.
No, as we said, it's been minimal communication with them, both from the city level and anything in the planning. It's been 2 years since they've actually invited people to an open house to look at the plans, and over the years those have become fluid. We've looked at how they've added an intersection. There's at least 3 pedestrian corridors that are triggered. That means the person walks up, pushes a button, and stops the traffic and walks across the street. One is the Rady Center. The Rady Center has a lot of people that cross over Kenaston.
So you have new questions about the new plan?
Definitely. Well, the new plan is the old plan, but it's been around for years. But the other thing is that we're not seeing the increase in traffic that 78,000 vehicles. That's only up about 10% from the 90s.
We'll have to ask the mayor about all of your concerns and more. Thank you, Larry, for being here early on the show.
Okay, great to be here.
That's Larry Dargis, chair of the Kenaston Community Network. We're live out at Kenaston and Grant at Stella's. Heather has news headlines.
Winnipeg dad Clint Levesque is moving on with his life after yesterday's conviction of his daughter's killer. That from his friend and a local anti-domestic violence advocate. Claire Levesque was 24 when she was murdered by her boyfriend in Scotland in 2024. Lauren Proto is frustrated the system didn't do more to protect Levesque. We'll hear more on that in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather. Well, let's get into the weather. Cloudy today, periods of rain, 5 to 10 millimeters, a high 11. Right now it is 9 degrees. Traffic is okay. So far, so good, so early. 788-3093 if you do need to reach us. And so in the next hour of the show, the mayor of the city of Winnipeg will be on. We'll put some of Larry's concerns and other residents as well. Plus, she bought property right up down Kenaston, knowing full well the city hopes to widen it. We are going to go to her house live this morning. Corey's there already, actually. We'll hear why she says she's excited about the project. And why are our tax dollars supporting Kenaston widening and not reopening Arlington Bridge, just to look at the city as a whole? We're going to hear more. Scott Gillingham, the mayor, joins us live in the next hour. Information Radio is live on location at Stella's.
On The Current.
I know that you know it, and you know that I know it, and I know that you know that I know it ad infinitum.
The cognitive scientist Steven Pinker wants to talk about what you know, and what you know that he knows that you know. The topic is common knowledge and how that shared understanding is key to humans working together. Steven Pinker, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Ontario Premier Doug Ford are meeting today. Pressure is mounting on the two levels of government as automakers flee Ontario in response to tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. The CBC's Janice McGregor is watching it all from our parliamentary bureau. So, Janice, what next steps are expected to come out of this meeting?
Angie, the Ontario and federal governments have worked together for decades to keep at least some level of automotive manufacturing in Canada, taking equity stakes as part of a bailout package when companies were struggling, more recently offering billions to help companies retool for hybrid vehicles and make new investments in electric battery production in Windsor. Premier Doug Ford then wasn't impressed that after all that financial support, the head of Stellantis told him he would postpone for a year the decision on what to do with the now idle Brampton plant.
I'm not going to give him a penny because it was tied in to making sure Windsor and keep Brampton going.
The Premier's office confirms that in Canada, but the Premier wants Canada to focus its hardball tactics not so much on the company, but on the Trump administration that brought in the tariffs that pressured Stellantis to shift investments in the first place.
So as we follow that angle of the narrative, we also understand that Carney and Ford won't just be discussing trade this morning.
That's right. Ford wrote to the Prime Minister last month urging him again to bring in stronger crime legislation, particularly bail reform. That's a priority Ford championed when he was chair around the Premier's table. Federal and provincial justice and public safety ministers are meeting in Alberta today. And this morning in Toronto, Mark Carney will join a pair of his other ministers to announce new measures to fight crime, including a preview of long-promised bail reform legislation that's expected in the House of Commons before the end of the month.
CBC's Janice McGregor for us in Ottawa. Janice, thank you for this.
You're welcome.
Health ministers from across the country, meantime, are meeting in Calgary, taking stock of Canada's healthcare system. They're looking at what's working, what's not, and what else needs some critical care. Senior health reporter Christine Briac has that story.
In my view, we are moving from a narrative of crisis to a narrative of hope in primary care.
Danielle Martin is a family doctor in Toronto. Ontario is promising to connect everyone with a family doc within 4 years. As Canada's health ministers meet face-to-face in Calgary, Dr. Martin says it's an opportunity to learn from one another and do big things.
A real pharmacare program, one that covers essential medicines for all Canadians, could be a solution not only to the need for nation-building programs, but also to the affordability crisis for the millions of Canadians who can't afford to take their medicine right now.
Alberta's health minister didn't provide an agenda for the meeting, but healthcare workforce issues are top of mind. Doctors and nurses are pushing for safer workplaces and the ability to work across provinces without needing a new license each time. Dr. Margot Burnell, president of the Canadian Medical Association, is in Calgary.
What it would do, it would allow physicians who live in border communities to practice across borders.
The healthcare system is strained to its...
Rita McCracken is a family doctor in BC. She says provinces paying into for-profit clinics is also impacting workforce shortages.
Increasing access to private options is not going to solve the problem. In fact, it is going to make the problem worse.
She hopes health ministers will discuss evidence-based ideas for improving the system, ideas that push toward lasting improvements for patients and providers. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, there's some good news for homeowners and potential buyers. The Canadian Real Estate Association is sounding a more optimistic note.
Okay, I took noise suppression off. This is the most I can do, so. Okay, well, it is what it is. I just won't talk about like, oh, it's so loud you can hear the traffic. But okay, that's cool. All right, I'll I know. I took it off. I took noise canceling off Zoom. So I thought maybe it would be fine, but maybe we need to change something else, some other setting or something. So and maybe it's just this mic too that's kind of doesn't pick up as much of the. Okay, that's fine. So it goes. Okay. Yeah, that's all good. I feel like that might be a bit nar, but I guess I could like call on my phone.
affordability. In many cases, you can have a house for the price of a two-bedroom condo in Montreal.
More and more families are leaving Montreal. According to the Statistics Institute of Quebec, more than 120,000 Montrealers are projected to move to other regions in the province by 2030. Frédéric Fleury-Paillard is with the Institute.
When you want to have 2 or 3 kids, usually the possibilities in Montreal are less common than in the suburb.
The shifting demographics do come with growing pains, though. Certain towns have halted development permits because current water and sewage infrastructures can't handle that many residents. Dumas says, though, they're catching up, and he encourages others to try out the country.
It's just easier life, I would say, in general.
A different kind of living that puts less strain on the wallet. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Saint-Sauveur.
Officials in Israel have confirmed the latest bodies returned by Hamas are those of Israeli hostages. The remains were handed over late last night. Forensic exams have determined one is a 27-year-old woman who's attending the Nova Music Festival. The other is a 39-year-old Israeli soldier. Both were likely killed in the October 7th attack. Hamas, meantime, says equipment to find and retrieve the remaining 19 deceased hostages buried under the rubble in Gaza.
No al cambio de régimen que nos recuerda.
Venezuela's president is telling U.S. President Donald Trump to refrain from carrying out a CIA coup in his country. Nicolas Maduro says threats of a regime change are a stark reminder of what he calls failed U.S. orchestrated coup attempts in Latin America and the Middle East. Maduro's comments come after Trump publicly confirmed he authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. He says they're needed to combat migration of Venezuelans to the United States and drug trafficking. Afghanistan and Pakistan have agreed to a temporary ceasefire. It comes after a week of deadly clashes along their border and retaliatory strikes on the Afghan capital. As our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji reports, the two sides now have 48 hours to stop a broader conflict from igniting.
The streets of Kabul as explosions rocked the Afghan capital. Neighboring Pakistan carried out retaliatory strikes after clashes near their shared border left at least a dozen people dead and hundreds more injured, both soldiers and civilians. A shell landed right here. This man on the Pakistani side of the border says there was panic. At this hospital in Spin Bolduc on the Afghanistan side, several men lie in stretchers recovering. 99% of the victims are civilians, including women and children, Dr. Akhtar Barak says. It comes after intense fighting at the volatile border broke out on Sunday, the heaviest clashes between the two countries in years. Late Wednesday, the two sides declared they had reached a ceasefire, a temporary one that will last 48 hours. But there are concerns the violence and incendiary rhetoric that accompanied it could still spiral. Ties between Afghanistan and Pakistan have deteriorated rapidly since the Taliban took power in 2021, with Islamabad accusing Kabul of harboring militant groups like the Pakistani Taliban, the TTP, which has been behind a rising number of deadly attacks. Please sit together and find a solution, pleads this Pakistani truck driver at the border crossing. He's not sure the ceasefire will hold, leaving those living along the contested border on edge. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
And finally, just as hope was starting to fade, a big win for the Blue Jays last night, taking down the Seattle Mariners 13-4 in Game 3 of the American League Championship. Jays fan Donovan Montgomery made the trip from Vancouver to watch the match in Seattle.
I mean, baseball is a funny thing. Like, you can lose 2 in a row, and then all of a sudden the bats get hot again, and they can win 4 in a row. Like, who knows? So we'll find out.
Well, the bats of the Jays certainly did indeed wake up. Toronto's offense exploded for 5 runs in the third inning, sparked by a 2-run homer by shortstop Andres Jimenez. But Seattle still leads the series 2-1. Canada's team will play Game 4 against the Mariners tonight. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Well, I feel that something needs to be done with Kenaston. Repairs for sure, probably rebuild the 2 lanes that are there, but widening makes a bigger parking lot.
So it's a good thing if they are going to increase the road, but they have to think about the potholes. My name is Vicky Safter.
Hi, I'm Harry Larvelt. You're listening to Information Radio, CBC Radio 1.
Thanks for joining us. Well, our community studio has Kenaston right out the window this morning. We are at the Stella's 1895 Grant at Kenaston, and we're talking about this project. Why? Well, it's more than just a bit of construction. This is one of the largest projects in our city's history. The project is now at a price tag of $757 million. It was his big promise when he ran for mayor. Scott Gillingham said to widen Kenaston. He says it's necessary. Some say it's not worth the price tag now, and they're questioning some of this moving forward in the current plan. The mayor is here already live. He's listening into all the residents that are weighing in on the show today, and he will join us this half hour on the program. It's 7:35. The mayor is on live, so stay tuned for that. We're going to start, though, in a moment, taking you out to someone's house. Corey's there with a resident. People thought she was crazy, she says, for buying a townhouse that is just meters away from Kenaston, because this project's been on the books for so many years. People often say, well, aren't they going to, widen that? Won't there be noise? Maybe you could lose your house. But she says she loves living here. And so we're going to hear more about it, and also about her awareness about the project as well, and why she is looking forward to aspects of it. So lots of opinions on Kenaston. We'll get into them this hour with our show. As mentioned, I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are on CBC 89.3 FM, and let's go to our headlines now with Heather Wells.
Good morning. 2 men are shaken and recovering after being shot in an armed robbery at their home-based jewelry business in the Maples. It happened last week. Rajan Dalla runs that store. He was shot 7 times during the robbery. He says thieves made off with almost $1 million in gold, and he says his family now is traumatized. Part of a building some have called a division between North and South Downtown is no more. The atrium of Portage Place Mall has been torn down as True North Realty Development Corporation begins to shape that area's future. We'll hear more about the project in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
We also have sports this half hour, which I'm looking forward to because I thought it was going to be depressing. I was trying to be a believer in the Jays, but it was hard. The game started last night. It was a little stressful, but as you just heard on World Report, they got it done, and did they ever? So that'll be good. We'll talk to Scott Regier. Right now, though, into the weather we go. It's going to be wet today. Already raining in Brandon, as mentioned. Light rain, 7 degrees there. Winnipeg, we're at 10 degrees. It's going to pretty much stay there. Our high is 11, and we are expecting 5 to 10 millimeters of rain in the forecast today. It's going to be wet for a few days. With traffic, Abby's covering that at 7:13 a.m. What do we know now, Abby?
Yeah, it's just for folks heading northbound from the Archibald and Provence end. We're going to be seeing a closed lane there. If you're turning left, it's closed for construction. Archibald and Provence, that's going to be closed for construction through the week. So expect delays for northbound traffic. If you see anything in traffic, you let us know. 788-3093.
Well, if you follow me on Facebook, acts as a show page during the show, then you're seeing that a lot of comments have been coming in about widening Kenaston in this project, and the opinions couldn't be farther apart. We have McGungan Nibaway writing in, I like it. Oddly, I end up on Kenaston often, and with all the business developments coming to Kapiong, more capacity is necessary. We just have to get through the next 5 to 10 years of construction. I think the estimate's 6 years, right in the middle there, for this to be happening. So it will be a long time for construction. It's a big project. Once shovels are in the ground, they think 2027. I mentioned what an opinion, difference in opinion we have from folks. Jason Carter wrote in, blackmailing the public, that's his language, by promising to add pedestrian bike infrastructure to the design if they first agree to extra car lanes is foul play. How could ethical engineers and planners have contemplated such a project in the middle of residential areas without including active transportation infrastructure from the beginning? Badly done. If you want to weigh in on the Kenaston widening and whether it's worth your tax dollars or not, what you'd like to see done here or not, maybe you live right here, maybe you drive, weigh in. We'd like to get calls this morning that we can get on the air, so 788-3205. Well, I mentioned residents. The neighborhoods around here, Sir John Franklin, we've got Tuxedo, of course, we've got River Heights. There's all kinds of different housing here. There's single-family dwellings. There's low-income housing here as well, and there are apartments and condos. So let's go to one of those. Residents have mixed feelings about the potential to see Kenaston widen. In the past hour, we heard from some folks who have some concerns about the project. But CBC's Corey Funk is, as I alluded to, is someone who can't wait to see it happen. So where are you, Corey?
Yeah, so Marcy, I'm here in Kenaston Village. It's just north of the Stella's where you're at right now. It's a complex of townhouses. And I am here with Becky Lett, who has lived here for about 8 years now. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm just going to just paint a bit of a picture for you. Her house, it's right behind me here. You can see her balcony up there. And then just maybe 10, 50 meters away from her front door is Kenaston. You can hear it right from her front door. And Becky is actually with me now. Good morning to you, Becky.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
So, Becky, when you bought 8 years ago, you say that people thought you were kind of crazy for buying like right on Kenaston here, knowing full well that there's this project going on and it's just a busy, noisy street as it is. So why did you buy on Kenaston?
Because I could definitely see the opportunity here. The grounds of Kenaston Village are gorgeous, beautiful in the fall and springtime. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen next with Nawe Odena and accompanying infrastructure because of the widening of Kenaston.
So when Kenaston, maybe potentially does eventually widen, what could that mean? Like when you talk about the potential of it, what could that mean for you as a resident here and as a property owner?
Well, there's a few things. Number one, we're going to have better infrastructure. Just this past year, the pavement was redone on Kenaston, and that's been a huge improvement in terms of road noise. It was annoying while it was going on. We felt kind of trapped here, but the city did it in such a way that we were only impacted for 1 or 2 days. And even then, we could use our other entrances to get in and out of the complex.
And in terms of, just like when you're in your house, what is it? Can you hear Kenaston like from inside? Like what's your experience living literally right on Kenaston here?
Well, to be perfectly honest, between April and October, it can get very loud with Sunday night cruising. And all the trucks, but I know that it's a major artery. I know that trade is important to our economy. And we just sort of deal with it. We've also replaced windows in our complex. And when we got a better window, it also helped to block the road noise.
And when you talk to your neighbors and stuff like that, how do they feel? Are you outlier? Are people on the same page as you here in the complex?
To be quite honest, I'm not really sure that people are aware. This complex in particular has undergone a lot of renewal. There's a lot of younger people and people from other cultures here, which has been fantastic. But I'm not entirely sure how aware they are of what's going to change here.
Even just from a property value point of view, do you have any thoughts about what it could mean for the value of your property if you ever do decide to sell down the road?
I think it's only going to go up. It's gone up over the past 8 years that we've lived here. Properties are going for around $200,000 in the complex right now. So I can only see it going up from here.
And just as a commuter as well, of course, what do you think the widening of Kenaston could mean for you? What does your commute look like now, and how does Kenaston play into that? And what'll change if the widening happens?
Wonderful question, Corey. This stretch has been severely impacted by the recent transit system changes. Our service has been cut down by about 30%. Which is difficult for me because I have certain mobility limitations, and it's very, very difficult for me to get quickly from here to Grant or here to Corydon. So I'm hoping for better sidewalks, improved active transportation corridors, and ideally increased bus service, because with all the housing going in across the street, it's specifically the low-income housing, it's going to be necessary to have better bus service on the stretch.
And if this project goes ahead officially 2027, did you have any concerns at all of what it could mean for you? It sounds like overall you're very positive, but are there any concerns for you?
The only concern is traffic and making sure that we can get in and out of the complex on time, specifically when we're going to work. There might be some increased activity and such but we can probably deal with it. We have been here 8 years and just adapting along the way, and that's how we roll.
And what about just tell me a little bit about the view? So you take, I've seen your Facebook as well. You take pictures all the time of Kenaston. What are some of the things you've seen over the years?
Oh, it's kind of a simple joy in my life. For example, we have a family of 5 or 6 deer that live here, and we watched them come across Kenaston, and everyone stopped in a coordinated manner to let the deer come across. I get super excited in July when Treaty Days happen across the way at Nawe-Odena. And one day this past summer, while I was recovering from surgery, actually, we saw an activity go on for the evacuees. It's just so lovely to see the space being used after seeing it lay dormant for, over 20 years when I first came to Manitoba. And it's just sitting there. It's vacant. Let's use it. Let's move on.
So you're saying we need a crossing for the deer is actually what I was thinking.
For the deer and for the humans, it's not fun to try to dart across Kenaston coming back from work. So I have to do a really big loop-de-loop in order to get home safely.
And finally here, just as a taxpayer, I'm talking as a resident commuter taxpayer, there's a big number attached to this project. $757 million right now is the price tag. From a taxpayer perspective, do you think that's worth it?
You know what? Stuff costs money, and if we want to grow, we need to pay for it, and we're going to get it back in increased trade and movement and development. So let's get it done.
Well, thanks a lot, Becky, for your time and waking up so early and letting me come right at your house.
No problem, Corey. It's a pleasure.
That's Becky Lett. She's a resident here in Kenaston Village, which is just north of Kenaston and Grant, where you are, Marcy.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Marcy.
So Corey's just nearby here. Where we are this morning is Stella's, Grant in Kenaston, 1895 in the strip mall here. Still dark out, but of course you can see the traffic picking up naturally. It's getting into rush hour. Also just want to mention, because of technology, the mic cuts on and in and out when people are speaking, right? So you could hear the traffic just in the background of Corey, and then it would go away so we could hear the guest. But it is obviously continuous there off of Becky's balcony. Her point of view, though, mixed about this. She has some excitement about it. She has some concerns, though, especially about taking the bus. We're going to put some of those concerns and also comments to the mayor, who is here waiting for his interview, which is coming up after 7:30.
A tiny car racing around with Red Bull on the roof. A customized Lincoln hitting the road like a bat out of a cave.
Holy understatements, Batman.
And a 27-foot four-wheeled Frankfurter.
Oh, I'd love to be an Oscar Mayer wiener.
Hitting the road with marketing mobiles on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Well, a bit of music before sports this morning. Manitoba-born singer-songwriter Doug MacArthur has been turning heads with his lyrics and memorable melodies after his 2023 solo debut came out, and 2024 he had another EP. He's back again with new music for the season. This is Magic on CBC.
Peering into this black mirror doesn't make me see things clearer. An infinite scroll has got no soul. Now and then I think that I should have had that beach day life, but that's not me. Frankly, it's a lie. There's nothing better in my view than hanging around at home with you. Oh, I wanna be part of that magic. I wanna know where it goes. I wanna be part of that magic. I wanna know where it goes. Now and then I worry I will spend the rest of my precious time.
Well, part of that magic, name of the tune's Magic, Doug MacArthur. And it actually is perfectly timed in the show this morning because we're going into sports, and there was magic on the bats last night for the Blue Jays. What a huge win in Seattle last night. Paul McGowan joins us now to run down what happened in case you missed this. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Yeah, a huge win, huge in terms of importance. Also huge in terms of margin of victory, 13-4 for the Jays' first win of the series. And that final score betrays how tense this was for the first couple of innings. Seattle up 2-0 after the first. But then two things happened. Jays starter Shane Bieber started striking out Mariners hitters. And the Blue Jays bats, after 2+ games, finally woke up. And this is going to be lost in the 5 home runs and the 13 runs and, Vladdy hitting a home run, Kirk hitting a home run. But the offense last night started at the bottom of the Blue Jays order. A third-inning double from Ernie Clement, then a game-tying 2-run homer off the bat of Andres Jimenez. That let everyone breathe a sigh of relief, and it was an onslaught from there. Shane Bieber, by the way, finishing with 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, and he talked after the game about how happy he was to be pitching in games like this.
Feels good. Very happy with the team victory today. I remember this time last year, having not thrown a ball for a while, just thinking I can't wait to pitch in big games. So I find myself here in the LCS and was able to do that tonight. And so happy with how things are playing out, but we're still down 2-1 and there's a lot left to do.
A lot left to do. The Jays will try to tie the series tonight with Max Scherzer on the mound. And if Blue Jays fans don't know how to feel about that, I don't know how to help you. This is a guy in Max Scherzer who, yes, is destined for the Hall of Fame. And, there was a point in August where we thought he might start game 1 of a postseason series for the Jays. But then he melted down towards the end of September, was left off the playoff roster in that series against New York. So it's tough to know what to expect, but it is empty the tank season right now. And we will get to see tonight exactly how much Scherzer has left in his tank. It's a 7:30 start in Seattle.
All right, excited. Unlike last night where I only had nerves going into watching. I don't know about the rest of Canada. Let's move to baseball and swimming. A stunning retirement yesterday from a 4-time Olympic champ.
And a 4-time Olympic champion almost doesn't do justice to Australian swimmer Ariane Titmus. Won 8 Olympic medals in total, 9 World Championship medals. She's the current 200-meter world record holder. And on top of all of that, is just 25 years old. But she took some time away from the sport after the Paris Olympics and then took to social media yesterday to announce that she is stepping away from all levels of swimming.
I guess I've taken this time away from the sport and realised some things in my life that have always been important to me are just a little bit more important to me now than swimming. And more than anything, I'm excited for what's next. I'm excited that I now have this opportunity to really delve into life and other things that I'm wanting to chase and look forward to.
It's so rare to see an athlete step away from a sport at the peak of their career, but it also provides perspective that there is life outside of the pool or the track or the baseball field. And Ariane Titmus seems to have some great perspective on her own life. Prior to the video that she posted, she actually announced her retirement in the form of a letter to her 7-year-old self that said, in part, "You achieved more than you ever thought you were capable of, and you should be so proud." Some impressive maturity from a 25-year-old athlete, and happy trails to Ariane Titmus.
All right, thanks a lot for the sports report this morning. Paul, appreciate it.
Thanks, Marcy.
Paul McGowan filling in for Scott Regier with Morning Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to CBC this morning on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. Our show is live. Our community studio is Stella's at Kenaston and Grant. And the mayor is here and will respond to a number of questions about the widening of Kenaston, including why are your tax dollars supporting the Kenaston widening and not reopening Arlington Bridge? How many residents will lose their homes for this? And for commuters in support, when is this going to be done anyway? We've been talking about it for years. All of those questions will be put to the mayor after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 10 degrees. Expect periods of rain to begin shortly. Starting this morning, 5 to 10 millimeters, continuing tonight. Still warmer than seasonal in Winnipeg, a high of 11. Two men are shaken and recovering in hospital after being shot during an armed robbery at a home-based jewelry business in the Maples. It happened October 9th and has left members of Rajan Dalia's family traumatized. Dalla suffered a fractured femur after being shot in his leg 7 times.
We are not feel safe now. We are planning to move back our home country because we are come here, get a citizenship, and we do work and we do everything. Now, if we are not safe, so then why we going to live here?
Dalla's father was also injured after being shot in his leg. He, too, recovering in hospital. He says the thieves made off with almost $1 million in gold. The Winnipeg Police Major Crimes Unit is investigating. A local anti-domestic violence advocate says victims need more protection. Lauren Proto knows Winnipegger Clint Levesque, whose daughter Claire was murdered by her boyfriend in Scotland. Yesterday, Aaron Pearson was sentenced to at least 25 years behind bars. Proto learned about audio shared at the trial in which Pearson admits to hitting Claire on her 24th birthday.
Then you hear Claire respond saying, "You're going to kill me," and then ending that conversation with, "I love you." That is the cycle of domestic violence, where they have you so trapped and so confused, you don't even know how to get out.
The couple had lived in Edmonton before moving to the remote part of Scotland in 2023. Proto says Canada needs a domestic violence registry where people can see if their partner has a history. Federal health ministers from across the country are in Calgary for 2 days of meetings. Interprovincial credential recognition, funding agreements, mental health and addiction issues, as well as vaccination programs could all be up for discussion. The ministers are also set to meet with national doctors and nurses organizations. The medical professionals have been calling for cooperation at both levels of government to develop new ways to support and retain health workers. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. The former CTV and CBC reporter hired to run Manitoba's U.S. trade office is earning $387,000 a year. CBC's Bartley Kivas has details.
Richard Madden was hired in June to lead Manitoba's trade office in Washington, D.C. Premier Wab Kinew's office disclosed his salary on Wednesday, 3 months after CBC News filed a Freedom of Information request to learn his compensation. Madden's salary is part of an $800,000 annual budget for the D.C. trade office. He'll earn more than Kinew will as premier this year and close to what Prime Minister Mark Carney will earn in Ottawa. Manitoba Progressive Conservative leader Abby Khan called this preposterous, outrageous, and absurd.
$387,000 for a career journalist who's untested in this industry.
Kinew's office said in a statement Madden has met with Manitobans and dealt with new trade issues, such as the U.S. investigation of Canadian mushroom exports. The Premier's office said Madden's compensation is in line with what other provincial trade reps are earning. Madden could not be reached for comment. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's child advocate says more supports are needed for young people impacted by wildfires. They include children and youth evacuated from their home communities this past summer. Sherry Gott says the province needs to assess the full impacts wildfires have on them and ensure their mental health, education, and other supports are part of any future emergency planning.
One of the things that we know is that children are behind academically if there's no access to regular education. One of the things we also notice is that the children missed out on their land-based opportunities, especially First Nation children from northern Manitoba.
Gott says the province also needs to do more to prevent fires from threatening communities. Well, the walls are coming down at Portage Place. Excavators ripping out the insides of the shopping mall. Now a gaping hole in what used to be its atrium at the intersection of Portage and Edmonton. Sean Cavanaugh at True North Real Estate Development says the mall was like a wall dividing two sides of downtown.
One of the architectural concepts is to open things up again so that there's a connection with Ellis and Central Park and the rest of the downtown. You can feel both sides of the downtown.
Kavanaugh says both sides of Edmonton Street will eventually be reconnected. True North Realty plans to transform Portage Place into a medical tower and a residence. Work is scheduled to be complete by 2028. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, let's do a quick look at our regional forecast here and get ready for the rain because today it's cloudy. It's 10 degrees in Winnipeg. A high is just 11, and we'll have 5 to 10 millimeters of rain on the way. Those periods of rain beginning this morning. Bring the umbrella. It'll stay wet into tonight. Sorry for the Bomber game if you're going. And then the temperature overnight will stay steady around 11. Into tomorrow, showers again. And then by Saturday, we see some sunshine. Brandon, same thing. Rain today, high 11, rain tonight. By Saturday, things should be sunny. And right now in Brandon, light rain already, 7 degrees. Thompson, cloudy and 5. And today for you, you're expecting a high of 7. It should clear. Your rain doesn't arrive until Saturday, so it's moving south to north the system. Traffic should be nothing major, unless, Abby, you have anything to mention?
Yeah, southbound Pembina Highway at the Vig, there's a fire truck blocking the two right lanes, so you need to squeeze around the median just to get by. You see more about what's happening there, give us a call, 788-3093.
It's been minimal.
Oopsie.
See, Abby, live shows are like that, and you're playing something we're actually about to hear. That is because we've been busy this morning. We've had people already on weighing in on the widening of Kenaston, and we've tried to clip some of their voices so Mayor Scott Gillingham, who joins us now, can hear what they have to say. So I'll say good morning to the Mayor because you are here with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Good to be here in person.
Thank you for being here. So this is going to be just one of the largest construction projects in our city's history. We are not here just because this is a bit of a road paving. $757 million to widen Kenaston to 6 lanes from 4, to expropriate some properties in the way, and to replace both spans of the St. James bridges, which are dating. Kenaston is the busiest roadway in Winnipeg. It sees more than 78,000 vehicles every day. But as you've already been hearing on our live show this morning from Stella's here at Grant and Kenaston, there's a lot of questions and a lot of opinions about the plans to have shovels in the ground here in 2027. Here's a sample.
It's been minimal communication with them, both from the city level and anything in the planning. It's been 2 years since they've actually invited people to an open house to look at the plans, and over the years those have become fluid. We've looked at how they've added an intersection. There's at least 3 pedestrian corridors that are triggered. That means the person walks up, pushes a button, and stops the traffic and walks across the street. The other thing is that we're not seeing the increase in traffic that 78,000 vehicles, that's only up about 10% from the 90s.
I found over the years the way the and I can't help but use air quotes, the consultation or the engagement sessions, even worse use of terminology, the way they're structured really is set up to kind of inflame people like the commuting cyclist versus the directly impacted homeowner who might have just found out before the session. Then they started having separate sessions for different groups of people, which is kind of your classic divide and conquer.
We're going to have better infrastructure. Just this past year, the pavement was redone on Kenaston, and that's been a huge improvement. This stretch has been severely impacted by the recent transit system changes. Our service has been cut down by about 30%, which is difficult for me because I have certain mobility limitations, and it's very, very difficult for me to get quickly from from here to Grant or here to Corydon. So I'm hoping for better sidewalks, improved active transportation corridors, and ideally increased bus service.
Everyone has an opinion about Kenaston. Now, those are some of the immediate folks that live here around Grant and Kenaston. We heard there from Becky Lett, Kenaston Village resident. She's excited about this project, but she also has some concerns about access and what it's going to mean. We also heard there from Carol Stiles, her full story coming up after 8. She lives on Carpathia. She's been facing expropriation for like 2 decades. Sometimes the house is needed, sometimes not. She is not happy with how the consultation processes have happened around this. And then we heard from Larry Dargis, who was with us live earlier, earlier. He lives on Carpathia. He's the chair, actually, of the Kenaston Community Network. And as you heard him saying there, he also feels there's been minimal communication, especially in the last 2 years. Now, I'm also speaking to the audience, but I'm speaking to you too, Mayor Scott Gillingham. I know you heard all of these things. Let me just start with a big question. You have said this is not negotiable. We need to do this. Why do we need to do it?
Well, first of all, we do need to do it because we're not making decisions for the present state of Winnipeg. We're making decisions for the future state of Winnipeg. And, people often refer to it, I've heard you refer to it a couple of times, as the widening of Kenaston. This is not just the widening of Kenaston. The widening of Kenaston is one of many projects in this work. And it's about a third of the total cost. What is really critical is we need to renew the bridges. As you've indicated, 78,000 vehicles go over those bridges every day. And Kenaston, it's not a local road. It's not a residential street. It is one of the main transportation economic arteries in all of Winnipeg. And what we've got right now is we have the southwest of Winnipeg, which is quadrupled in its population in the last 50 years. It's the fastest growing part of the city. The northwest is growing rapidly as well. And Route 90 connects those two communities. And right across the street from where we're sitting today is now Odina.
Yeah, they're going to be on the air with us after 8.
Which will be the largest infill project in Winnipeg's history. It's one of the largest infill projects in all of Western Canada. And that will accommodate, at full build-out, about 3,000 residents, another 1 million square feet of commercial space. So the growth is happened, and it's going to happen even more.
What do you take to Larry's challenge? You heard him say, 78,000 vehicles, but he figures that's about 10% up from the 90s. So he, that doesn't seem like that big of a number from the 90s to have that increase. Why are you confident that moving forward it's going to be even more? Because of some of what you mentioned?
At a minimum, we're going to be adding 3,000 units of housing, which, whatever that translates to into the number of people and vehicles. And our economy continues to grow. What we've got right now is the section that we're talking about of Kenaston that needs the work. The bridges, the sewer work, the adding of bike lanes to this area, improving our transportation, the widening of the road. It's a choke point right now. Anyone who has driven Kenaston Boulevard knows that this is a choke point in the whole system, in the largest, or probably the most, the busiest transportation route.
When you look at how long this has been taking, we're going to hear from Carol after 8. She's been to consultation projects, processes as a resident here who may have her home expropriated, bought out by the city to build this. She says she knows something has to be done on Kenaston. She knows there's a process here, but she feels like the consultation, and she put it in air quotes to her to say that, has really not been that. It's been, we're doing this and here's what might happen. And she says a lot of people just don't have clarity here about what will happen for them as residents. And she does feel like people have been pitted against each other, like separating the consultations. Let's hear from the residents, and now let's hear from the active transport people. And she feels like the process has been a little bit of a mess. Is that a fair comment?
Well, certainly there would, in my time, there would never be a goal to pit one group against the other. We just wouldn't do that. The goal is to communicate with the residents. I think there's been at least 5 rounds of consultation. There needs to be more communication with residents as we go. So that always, the goal is always to improve that. There's no doubt. And if residents are lacking information, please reach out to the city and ask for the information. We'll try to provide it. But at the end of the day, and it's important to talk to the residents, but if we don't get this project built, and if we don't include the widening as part of the project, what's going to happen is we will go down. We have to redo the bridges. We have to. They will go down to single lane in either way for up to 4 years, because each bridge will have to be done independent. And what that will do, Marcy, is it will push traffic trying to cut through. It'll push it into the residential areas, as happens already now. And we'll see people trying to cut through residential roads in Tuxedo and in River Heights.
When will residents have clear answers about whether or not their properties are going to be needed for this? You have 78 properties on the books, because people are in limbo. And they also say, by the way, Carol, who we'll hear from after 8, would say she doesn't want to leave the impression out there that she doesn't think things need to be done, the bridges and the roadways. It's just she feels the communication hasn't been clear. She doesn't know if her house is going to go or not. She doesn't know why bikes couldn't be going on parallel routes. Why do you have to widen it even more to have, parallel active transportation? she just feels like the process has been a little bit muddy. So when will people know if they're going to get their houses bought?
Well,
out?
as these projects progress, then certainly that communication will continue. If people need information they don't have right now, please reach out to the city and ask for that information. We'll try to get it to you. What we've got before us right now is a report that recommends we put $5 million into the city's 2026 budget to purchase lands that are needed.
Is that a low estimate? I couldn't make figure out the math, because Carol's house is going to be where this is conservative. I mean, in River Heights here, so this is conservative, $300,000, single family home. If you times that by 78, you're going to come up with over 23 million. You have 5 million budgeted. I don't get it.
Well, this is the recommendation of the public service based on their analysis of what we need to do as a first step, and so that's what the public service has said in their design, that we need to begin with $5 million for land acquisition to accommodate this work.
We can't do this without money from the feds or the province. Yes or no?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and all along, I appreciate you said, I heard you say it was part of my campaign commitment. It is. This project, in my estimation, needs to be done for the future of Winnipeg, for our growth. What we need, federal and provincial partnerships, and I envision that it would be a one-third cost-sharing arrangement.
The feds have said no to you twice, though, already on this, and now we're $20 million more year over year. What makes you confident that they're going to come to the table?
This is an economic trade route. It's one of the most important, if not the busiest, economic trade route. The economy, a strong economy, is critical to the federal and provincial government. This also ties us into 17 Wing. It ties us into the airport as well. And, I know that the Prime Minister is really keen and really focused on making significant investments in Canada's defence. We have a large defence presence here in Winnipeg, and I think that this could accommodate that vision that he has.
Why did we have a plebiscite about Portage and Main? And, we had endless public discourse about that. And yet it may seem to some people listening across Winnipeg that they kind of have no say on Kenaston.
I think that political leaders need to make decisions, and I think it's time for us to make this decision for the future of Winnipeg. This is not about the present state of the city. It's about a project that needs to be built for the future of where Winnipeg will be in the coming years.
What do you say to those who champion a green city and feel this is continuing to fly in the face of that?
Well, this work will actually accommodate. It'll add bike lanes for cyclists, active transportation pathways for those that choose to walk.
But you know the argument, urban sprawl, more people going to the neighborhoods, and then the older neighborhood here is going to...
This is the largest infill project in the city's history. We'll have more densification here, right here, which really, for those who envision, that kind of design of a city, this project will accommodate and needs to accommodate the growth of up to 3,000 residents here, right across the street from us.
St. James bridges go to 1962, right? The spans?
I believe so.
Yeah. So what about Arlington Bridge?
Well, we've got money in the budget for that this year. We're starting the demolition. The demolition won't start in 2025, but we put money aside to do the demolition as a first step of Arlington Bridge and the redesign of a new bridge.
Was it ever considered to have it be 4 lanes? To have the active transportation lanes be taken out of the project as parallel, to use side streets instead, like Lockwood, for example, goes right through, and then to have it maintained at 4 lanes, and maybe have collector streets that could have been developed over the last 10 years. Have you been? Why are we stuck on the 6 lanes? What do we understand about how traffic moves that makes that necessary?
A couple of things. It will, first of all, it'll accommodate the work of the rework on the bridges. Right? We can't come to a place where we get down to 1 lane each way for up to 4 years. That would be traffic chaos. But also, the widening accommodates a better transit flow as well for those that want to use transit, better transit connectivity, more better safety in the intersections for this large infill project and the growth of what is going to be right across the street from us.
I know you have an appointment, so we have 1 minute left, so I'm going to respect that. I'm just telling listeners. I have to ask about busing. Becky brought up that. What will this mean for people that live right on Kenaston in this area to be able to access their bus routes? She's hoping for wider sidewalks. What's the reality of that?
Well, the reality is, by doing this work and the project as envisioned, including the widening as one of the components, it will allow us to better accommodate buses and better accommodate pedestrians as well in a safer manner.
Just last then, 6 years of construction. Is that about what we're expecting if you get shovels in the ground in
The
2027?
goal is 2027. I don't know if it's 6 years or not, but it could be that. We've been talking about this project for a long time. It's a complicated project, projects plural, because as I said, I think it's important that we talk about it's not just widening, it's several projects, all of which I've articulated today, and so that's going to take a few years. But again, one of the reasons to do all of this work, including the widening, is we can't get to the place where we're choking traffic even further. Can you imagine Kenaston Boulevard? Single lane, either way, for up to 4 years. Nobody wants that.
Thank you for being here live.
Thank you.
That is the mayor of the city of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham, here with our monthly check-in. But today we were just covering Kenaston. The big story and why we're out on location this morning at Stella's, Grant and Kenaston. If you want to weigh in, 788-3205. More to come.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
Well, speaking of traffic, I have one note to pass along. Bumper-to-bumper traffic on Highway 1 around Plessis Road, heading toward Fermor because of ongoing construction there. Please call us if you have an update. 788-3093 is the traffic line. Well, let's step into news of the day now, and this has to do with vaping. Earlier this year, Manitoba joined other provinces and increased the tax on vaping products as a way to discourage their use, especially among young people. Still, though, the Manitoba Lung Association wants to see the province ban flavored vape cartridges. Vaping continues to make headlines across Canada as people weigh the pros and cons. Some who used to smoke say they were able to quit with the help of e-cigarettes. But teenagers and kids often vape, as mentioned, and that continues to be a huge concern. A World Health Organization report came out last week. It calls this a new public health crisis in the making. So with a special edition of our medical column today, Dr. Samir Gupta on the vaping trends and what science now says about the risks.
Good morning, Marcy.
So why don't we start with this World Health Organization report? What did they find?
Yeah, so I'd say the report has some good news and some bad news. You know, the good news is that globally, there's this trend towards decreased tobacco use in the last 25 years or so. So the proportion of people aged 15 or older who smoke around the world has gone from 33% in 2000 to about 20% in 2024. And women are quitting faster, so only 6.6% of women now smoke. Some parts of the world are doing better than others. We're still in the sort of mid 20% range in Southeast Asia and Europe, but they're down below 10% now in Africa. And that's the good part. The bad part is that we're seeing this dramatic increase in the number of people around the world who now vape. And for the first time, that number has touched 100 million. And what's most alarming is that 15 million of those are kids aged 13 to 15. So kids are 9 times more likely than adults are to vape. And we're seeing those same trends in Canada.
A 13-year-old vaping obviously is a bad idea. What are some of the possible health effects on a child?
So when we talk about smoking, you know, whether it's conventional cigarettes or e-cigarettes, people often do focus on the nicotine. And nicotine is one of the most addictive substances that we know of. It's even more addictive than heroin and cocaine because it sort of goes straight to the brain and causes release of dopamine, and that makes us feel good. And that being said, it's the rest of the chemicals in that cigarette smoke or that e-cigarette vapor that we conventionally worry most about from a health perspective. I'd say what's different in kids is that we actually do have to worry about the nicotine as well. And that's because nicotine impacts brain development. The brain is not actually fully developed until the age of 25. So whether it's kids or young adults, nicotine affects things like memory, concentration, learning, impulse control. And what we worry about is that these e-cigarettes will create that nicotine addiction, and then those kids will eventually graduate to real cigarettes. And, you know, that's sort of saying nothing about all those other harmful toxins in the vapor itself.
What do we know about what is actually in the vapor?
Yeah, so, you know, the term vapor sounds pretty innocuous, and it sounds much less harmful than smoke. And if you look at the components in the e-juice itself, they also seem pretty harmless. You know, there's propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, a few different flavors, and then plus or minus that nicotine. The problem is that in order to turn that e-juice into vapor, the e-cigarette uses what's called an atomizer, and that superheats the liquid to between 100 and 250 degrees Celsius. Now, in that process, some of those substances get transformed into new chemicals, and parts of the device itself also do get into that vapor. So studies show over 100 different substances in that vapor, and that includes silicate particles, metals like nickel, silver, and lead, and then a slew of chemicals like acrolein, for example, which is a herbicide, and carcinogens like acetaldehyde and formaldehyde.
What do we know about what those chemicals actually do to our bodies?
Yeah, so Marcy, the biggest challenge is that we don't know what this does long term. And people keep talking about how safe e-cigarettes are, but that's kind of what people thought about tobacco cigarettes too, until we had 20, 30 years of experience. And we just don't have that with e-cigarettes yet. But what we do know is that the short-term effects of vaping are not good. We have studies that, for example, show inflammation in the airways of the lungs, and particularly those smaller airways deep inside the lungs. That happens immediately after vaping. We know that e-cigarette users tend to have more cough and phlegm. We have studies showing that patients with chronic lung diseases like asthma and COPD tend to have more flare-ups when they vape. I've certainly seen patients with asthma in my clinic who tell me they cough more when they vape. But it goes beyond the lungs. We have studies showing that vapes suppress the immune system. Vaping causes inflammation in the blood vessels in the body. That increases blood pressure. We have cellular studies that show the kind of damage to DNA that we know is a precursor to cancer development. And then these devices and cartridges are not regulated. So we have reports of devices causing burns and batteries exploding. We have studies showing that cartridges labeled as non-nicotine often contain nicotine. And then we've had reports of contaminants in the e-juice. In some cases, those contaminants have led to severe lung damage and even death.
So that's quite a list, quite a scary list. But on the other hand, then we hear people talking about how e-cigarettes can be helpful to quit smoking. Like if we circle back to where we started, have you seen that in your practice? Is that a possible benefit in your view?
Yeah, so Marcy, I think the first thing I'll say is that there has been a lot of debate about this in the medical community, but the more studies we have, the clearer it is that, as you say, e-cigarettes are in fact a very effective way to help people to quit tobacco cigarettes, and probably more effective than a lot of the medications we're currently using for this. And I certainly have had patients in my practice who've sort of tried everything else and failed. And then one day they come back to clinic and they say, hey, I quit. And it was with e-cigarettes. And we call that a harm reduction strategy. Now, only time will tell whether e-cigarettes are truly less harmful than conventional cigarettes. But on the balance, given what we know today, they probably are less harmful. The problem is that most of those 100 million people using them are in fact not using them to quit, and particularly those 15 million kids. So, the tobacco industry is really good about talking about e-cigarettes as a harm reduction strategy, but then at the same time, they're making bubblegum flavored e-juice and they're marketing this to teenagers on social media. So I think it is a really potent tool to help people to quit smoking, but on the balance, it's primarily not being used that way.
Thanks for this week.
My pleasure, Marcy.
Dr. Samir Gupta, now with local headlines. Here's Heather Wells.
2 men are shaken and recovering after being shot in an armed robbery at their home-based jewelry business. It happened last week in the Maples. Rajan Dalla runs the store. He was shot 7 times. He says the thieves made off with almost $1 million in gold. Manitoba's child advocate says more supports are needed for young people impacted by wildfires. Sherry Gott says the province needs to assess full impacts wildfires have on young people and ensure their mental health, education, and other supports are part of any future emergency planning. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Stella had a book of records in case the city comes knocking to knock her house down. Listen to this. Have a look at this. What is this binder? What are all of these drawings and We're going to find out what that binder is after 8 o'clock when we hear from a homeowner in the expropriation zone sharing what it's been like to live with the on-again, off-again project of widening Kenaston that could actually have the city buy out her house. So stay tuned for that. Also, we're going to take you to Nawa Udena. We'll hear about what they think of widening Kenaston as our ongoing coverage continues. We're live on location at Stella's, Grant and Kenaston. This is CBC.
Today on Q.
Jeff Wall is one of this country's most acclaimed photographers. His work has shown around the world, been sold at auction for millions of dollars. He'll be here to tell you what happens when your dad builds you a shed to draw in when you're a kid, and why he doesn't mind if you don't remember the names of his pieces.
It's better they forget them, because that's a symptom of them having made the picture for themselves.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10, 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The cognitive scientist Steven Pinker wants to talk about what you know, and what you know that he knows that you know. The topic is common knowledge and how that shared understanding is key to humans working together. Steven Pinker coming up on The Current.
I'm Angie Seth. We begin with the housing market. After several months of recovery, new data released this morning shows the national increase in home sales has officially peaked. The Canadian Real Estate Association, or CREA, reports sales dipped last month for the first time since the spring, but there are surprisingly strong signs of life in some of the country's biggest cities. Here's more from CBC's Lisa Shing.
September's home sales were down by 1.7% compared with August. That ended a series of gains that started back in April. The reason for that slump: fewer people buying homes in cities like Greater Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, and Montreal. But the Greater Toronto Area and Winnipeg seeing sales tick up. And even though the Bank of Canada lowered interest rates in September, the Canadian Real Estate Association's senior economist, Sean Cathcart, says we might not see the effects of that rate cut until later in the fall.
We might see it show up in October. We certainly did see that happen last year, where October was the month where things really sprang to life.
Even with this dip, the number of sales was still up compared with the last several years. In fact, up 5.2% compared with the same time last year, and the highest it's been since 2021. The average cost of a home nationally hasn't changed much since the last month, but is down about 3.4% compared with a year ago. Now, CREA's economist says some of the more affordable markets in the Prairies, East Coast, and Quebec are slowing down a bit, while BC and Ontario are starting to pick back up. But while the Canadian Real Estate Association forecasts continued momentum into 2026, there are a few uncertainties, namely U.S. President Donald Trump's continuing trade war, which had dampened its forecast earlier this year and could do so again. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
A warning from Caracas to Washington.
No al cambio de régimen que nos recuerda tanto a las fallidas guerras eternas.
Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro warns Donald Trump against the idea of carrying out a CIA coup in his country. His comments come after the U.S. president publicly confirmed he's authorized the intelligence agency to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. The CBC's Willie Lowry is in Washington and joins us. So, Willie, why has Donald Trump ordered these CIA operations?
Well, Angie, President Trump says this is all about limiting the amount of illegal drugs flowing into the U.S. and saving American lives. The U.S. has launched at least 5 strikes on what Trump says are narco-terrorist boats in the Caribbean. By his estimate, every strike saves 25,000 American lives. And he says he's not about to stop anytime soon. He's authorized the CIA to deal with Venezuelan migrants heading to the U.S.
I authorized for 2 reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America.
So it's certainly created tension here, and it's likely to add to the growing friction between the United States and Venezuela. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
It certainly will, and tensions are already high. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accused the Trump administration of attempting a coup against him. The U.S. does not view Maduro as the legitimately elected president of Venezuela. In August, the State Department issued a $50 million reward for information leading to his arrest and accused him of leading a cartel. But the recent strikes, which have killed at least 27 people, have many in the U.S. concerned. Earlier this month, Democrats in the Senate attempted to block the strike under the War Powers Act, but failed. Senator Richard Blumenthal said Congress needs to be better informed.
Congress should demand to know what the evidence is that these boats are part of a cartel
And Trump brushed off lawmakers' concerns and says the U.S. knows what's on the boats before it strikes.
The CBC's Willie Lowry for us in Washington. Willie, thank you for this.
My pleasure.
Well, the fragile Gaza ceasefire is facing a severe test this morning. Tension is mounting after Hamas failed to return all deceased hostages as required by the deal. 2 more bodies were repatriated last night, but more than a dozen remains are still unaccounted for. Meanwhile, a painful sense of closure has reached the community of Niret. The remains of a young soldier taken hostage on October 7th were identified after being returned on Tuesday. Crystal Gabansing has more from Niret, Israel.
Flags with Tamir Nimrodi's image line the road. People stand silently, shoulder to shoulder on the highway between his hometown and the military cemetery where he'll be buried. Until this week, Nimrodi's family didn't know if he died while in captivity in Gaza. The non-combat soldier was kidnapped October 7th from a base near the Erez crossing. Shahal Sakat drove 20 minutes to view the procession.
I do everything to come for Tamir.
How are you feeling knowing that only 9 of the 28 have been returned?
It's terrible. Hamas don't do what they were supposed to do.
Hamas says the rest are under the rubble and special equipment is needed to locate them. U.S. President Donald Trump says he could give the word and Israel would resume the war. He also said Hamas was working to uphold its end of the deal.
They're actually digging. There are areas where they're digging and they're finding a lot of bodies.
Israeli forensics teams confirmed this morning the last female captive in Bar Haiman was returned along with Mohammed Altrish. Their return possibly the last for a while, a reality that is painful for many Israelis who say they still have no peace. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Niret, Israel.
South Korea is issuing a travel ban for parts of Cambodia. It's over growing concerns about its citizens being lured into working in scam centers there. Over 50 South Koreans have been arrested by Cambodian authorities following scam center crackdowns. Seoul is now sending a special team to Cambodia to help sort out the situation. Here's more from Frank Smith.
South Korea's National Security Advisor, Wee Sung-lak, says more than 1,000 South Korean nationals could be working, many involuntarily, in Cambodia's thriving scam industry. The response team heading to Cambodia from Seoul includes officials from South Korea's police force and spy agency. This week, Britain and the U.S. imposed sanctions on the Prince Holding Group, accusing it of enabling the global scam network. The centers, often run by organized crime rings, traffic people into working there, implementing scams linked to romance or investment schemes which deceive people around the world into handing over personal information and money. Seoul has now banned its people from traveling to certain regions of Cambodia known for high levels of criminal activity. Frank Smith for CBC News, Seoul.
Back here at home, Canada's cool climate and plentiful water is making it a prime target for AI data center investors. The industry is spending hundreds of millions to add to the 300 centers already operating in Canada. All are looking for cheap power and fresh water to cool overheated servers. But as Yvette Brand reports, one industry whistleblower warns Canada needs to protect its resources from this thirsty industry.
Every time AI is used to make a video or search facts, it uses energy and water. Every dozen prompts or so to ChatGPT use about 500 milliliters or a cup of coffee full. Data centers like this large Microsoft one under construction right now in Etobicoke, Ontario, can use up to a swimming pool full of water per day for cooling. But senior Microsoft director Alistair Spears says they're working to avoid using that much water by venting in cold air.
So one of the great things about building in Canada and in colder climates is that we can just use free air cooling from outside air temperatures.
Former Amazon employee and Washington water scientist Nathan Wangusi says despite alternate cooling methods, water remains key.
Unlike any other industry, water is like blood to the data center industry.
He's done the math, and he says data industry pledges to cut water consumption for cooling within the next 5 years don't add up.
It is not possible for any of the big tech companies today to meet water positive by 2030 or even 2050 unless they go bankrupt.
As the data center boom hits Canada, city staff must decide if projects are worth any resource costs to their community. This as investors pitch massive projects in parts of the country affected by drought. U of T water engineering professor David Meyer warns.
Canadians that live in dry areas should care a lot about AI water usage. That water is needed for agriculture, it's needed for cities.
And the water use and runoff of AI data centers can also overwhelm city infrastructure that Myers says relies on pipes laid long before anybody envisioned this thirsty new industry. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
But I do know it's one of the most ridiculous roads in Winnipeg, in my opinion. I don't like the road in general, and I avoid it whenever possible.
It's a major route that the city really needs to push to be able to be widened, like 100%. It's about time. Good morning. I'm Lindsay Schellenberg.
Sure, my name's Stephen White.
And you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1.
I'm Marcy Marcusa. We are live out with the morning show today at Grant and Kenaston at the Stella's here as we look at the impact of one of the largest projects in our city's history, $757 million. It's going to take years to complete. And in fact, the city is still searching for commitments from the feds and the province to make this happen. This half hour on the show, more about the immediate impact. When the widening of a roadway can mean the loss of a home you've lived in for 24 years. We're going to hear from a resident facing the possibility of expropriation to widen Kenaston, how she's been living with that uncertainty for decades. She's never spoken out before. She'll be here on CBC. Also, we are going to take you to one of the other large developments here just out the window, up Kenaston. Nawu-Udena developments running along the route. What do they think about the city's big project? Chief Gordon Blue Sky will join us as well. Let's go to Heather now with quick headlines.
Well, 2 men are shaken and recovering in hospital after being shot during an armed robbery at a home-based jewelry business in the Maples. It happened October 9th and has left members of Rajan Dalla's family traumatized. They think the thieves got away with more than $1 million in gold. Winnipeg dad Clint Levesque is moving on to life after the conviction of his daughter's killer. That from his friend and a local anti-domestic violence advocate. Claire Levesque, 24, was murdered by her boyfriend in Scotland. Lauren Proto is frustrated the system didn't do more to protect her. Back with more local news coming up at 8:30.
Cloudy and 10 in Winnipeg. The high today just 11, 5 to 10 millimeters of rain, and it's going to be wet the next couple of days. I kept saying the Bomber game's tonight. It's not. It's tomorrow. But you're still probably going to be rained on. Traffic, Abby.
Watch for northbound delays at Archibald and Provincial. The left turn lane is closed for construction through the week, so expect northbound delays. And also, remember, if you're heading into the city around places towards Fairmont, there's going to be some delays also there for you. You see anything in traffic? Let us know. 788-3093.
Well, next on the show about Kenaston widening, what if you live in one of the homes that are in the way? Yesterday with videographer Travis Golby, I found myself in front of a 1 3/4 story classic home with these neatly manicured hydrangea bushes and a painted front door. The homeowner has never spoken out before, but she wanted to share her perspective with CBC. Well, imagine the city coming to you and saying that your house would be a, quote, full take. That's an actual quote. It's what a less than eloquent city planner said to Carol Stiles. She lives here on Carpathia Road. Now, as you can see behind me, we are one street off of Kenaston. We're just east of Kenaston Boulevard. And so she was at one of the open houses back in the day and learning about what might happen to her property and her home. And that's what was said to her in front of her little kids at the time. What it means is that this home here that Stiles has lived in since 2001 is one of those at the time that has been both on and off the list over the years for expropriation. That basically means that it will be torn down and bought by the city. Stiles is one of potentially 78 private homeowners affected by this project, the widening of Kenaston Boulevard and these new bridge spans. But as you're about to hear, she's still renovating her bathroom, and you can see how beautiful her home is today, and you can probably hear her off camera. Here she is with us in front of her home. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Marcy.
So what did that feel like, that moment, being told you'd be a quote-unquote full take?
Well, after explaining to my young son, who asked, "What does that mean, Mummy?" I, of course, got really, really intensely angered and frustrated because at the time, the plans to date had not shown us being directly affected. Now everybody in the neighborhood is going to be affected, and people passing through the neighborhood are going to be impacted during the estimated 6-year construction timeline for this big project. But at the time, our understanding was our property and even our neighbor's property at the beginning wasn't slated to be expropriated.
Yeah. What does it feel like to be a homeowner right here?
Well, I know people who are in a much more difficult situation than we are, but it is something, truthfully, that does kind of weigh on you, but it waxes and wanes because every time there's a civic election or people think we're going to get some shovel-ready funds, people start talking about it and score a few points because everybody gets frustrated with the commute. But over the years, we've learned to just set it aside because it's not a certainty.
I think that I just can't even imagine being in this situation, like living right here. And then over the years, every time Kenaston comes up or a councillor mentions it, what happens on your street?
Oh, people talk. We love our neighbors. We're on a few iterations of neighbors. People who have had the means to move have moved. Have made that choice that's best for them, and other people have difficulty selling their homes, so that affects property value. Of course, it's a hot topic at work and at when you get together with family and friends, because people want to know, hey, what's happening with Kenaston? What's happening with your house? Well, you know as much as I do.
How tired are you of that question? And maybe as you explained it to me, for sale signs going up every time it gets raised here in this part of Winnipeg.
And then worse, young families moving in and not knowing in advance, and then finding out after the fact.
How do they find out after the fact?
I don't know, just word of mouth on the street or when it comes up in the media.
Got it.
So. We did make that decision early on after the first consultation in 2008-9, where we're third house in. We were then on the plan second house in, and there were multiple improvements, a sound fence, blocking the visual on appeal of the traffic, etc. And we made the decision then. We had a daycare spot. We were starting our family and school, and we thought, let's just see if we can get the kids through school and set this aside. It's not something we can control, and there's no money for it. And lo and behold, I have one in university, one in grade 11, and we did consult a lawyer on what are our rights and how does it all work, which was very reassuring. But we just weren't in a position to put ourselves further in debt with the housing market to move on spec when we might not need to.
Yeah.
So,
isn't that saying something? These little kids back in the day that you had, and you thought, well, we'll give it a shot. Maybe the kids will be through school. And you said they're like
16 and 18.
16 and 18 now.
One wasn't even born yet at that first consultation.
That's how many years? Renovating the house. What's that like, having to make that decision when you have this in the background? Because as I said, you're doing the bathroom right now even.
Really, really challenging. Before we did put an addition on, but we did that assessment, make or buy. Do we move? Do we uproot? Do we find something that we could live with close by, or do we take the risk and roll the dice and put an addition on? And the lawyer assured us that the city has to make you whole, meaning that whatever I carry as a mortgage, I should not be further in debt as a result of having been expropriated.
I'm just going to interject here and talk to the listeners for a minute because the math doesn't work yet. And here's why. Because they're saying 78 private properties, and they're saying that the city has set aside $5 million to cover that. I did quick math. So let's say Carroll's Health is worth $300,000. It will be more if you look at anywhere in this River Heights, Sir John Franklin neighborhood, you'll know that. That adds up to $23 million plus. So how clear has the city been with you? Do you have any idea whether or not, what's going to happen with your future? I mean, this is also your investment.
No, we're not clear. There are people who are super frustrated that they want they just take me out. If they know they're going to be taken out, some people haven't actually put the investment into upkeeping their home, which then further reduces the value. We want people to get what they need. And if the city is going to take them out, then they should honor that. But don't take them out on spec and leave us even wider open to the traffic when you haven't actually even secured the budget and confirmed what do you need.
You're a nurse.
Yep.
Your husband is a teacher. You said you have a kid in university. Are you letting your mind think about what it would mean if they say, no, this is it, Carol, we really are going to take your house, you're going to be expropriated? What was that going to mean for your life at this stage?
Well, with what I have on my plate right now, I'm going to deal with that at the time, but we'll get reconnected with our lawyer or one of his colleagues and make sure that we're well represented so that we're made whole.
You get fair compensation.
Yeah.
Let's look over here for a second. I'm going to turn around and stand by Carol because you see this fence over here right on the edge of her property? What if they came up to there? Because that was part of one of the plans. What if they said they're going to do about noise? Like, do you have an understanding of what that would mean for you?
No, the noise attenuation plan has waxed and waned over the years, including being non-existent.
How would you feel about living beside a sound fence in 6 lanes?
Well, I've gone behind in different neighborhoods. We've gone on field trips, like on the Charleswood Parkway, and gone behind the fence one. Yeah, it's pretty quiet. Like I'd rather have trees and not be choking on a fence.
You've gone on field trips.
Everybody gets a big, tall, 12-foot tall, at least an 8-foot tall sound fence. And usually they're pretty reasonable. It's noisy now. We've been saying plug the hole for years.
Yeah.
Close the road. But again, they need emergency access. But I just get on with it already. People are just tired of the uncertainty. We want to know what we're getting, and we want the improvements. We don't like driving on it either.
Style. She lives on Carpathia Road, 1 street east of Kenaston Boulevard. By the way, can you even imagine over the years that in some of those iterations of plans, the city actually went ahead and did tear down homes already, and yet then those lots are still waiting for this development. So it's a real personal point of view on what's going on here. She doesn't want to leave the impression she's against all of the development, but she does question the 6 lanes and whether or not they could have changed that. Well, other folks have been writing to us this morning about the widening of Kenaston. We're live at Stella's on Grant and Kenaston saying it's got to be 6 lanes. That's what the mayor says. That's what some others are saying. It's so busy. 78,000 cars. It's the busiest roadway in Winnipeg when you look at volumes. Tara Gill is here. She took Kenaston to get here. Where'd you drive from, Tara?
From the West End.
Yeah. What are you thinking of this project to improve flow here?
I think it's got to happen. We need it should have happened years ago already, and I really think that it'll be a good thing for the city.
Yeah. Have you sat in your car and kind of gone, a time or two being stuck on Kenaston?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I have a friend who lives just off Kenaston, and just getting to and from their place is a real hard thing to do.
Yeah. In terms of what might concern you, I understand you're looking at the scale of this and thinking, what's that going to mean, the actual construction, right?
Yeah. From what I understand, like you said, it's going to be 6 lanes, so three each way, and I think it's really important that that happens, and that they don't take too long to make it happen. Everyone should just get on the same page, and it's important, like with our new neighbors there, as far as reconciliation goes, to include them as well, and make it accessible for them as well. It's good for everybody.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. I pulled you away from your breakfast. I hope you weren't like mid-bite.
No, my food was done. I'm just going to have some more coffee and get caffeinated.
Listen in then, because I didn't tell Tara what was coming up next, but she actually talked about it here. Tara Gill, we pulled her on the airways to talk about Kenaston. What is coming up next is actually going to find out about Nawa-Udina, which is the development up the road. So residents here are not the only ones who might be affected by the plans to widen Kenaston. It is also on the minds of Treaty 1 nations. That's because one of the organizations behind that development of what will be the largest urban reserve in Canada, here on Kenaston, just out the window, window, now Udena, is right there. So it runs along Kenaston. We wonder what the impact will be on the plan. So Gordon Blue Sky is chief. He's the chairperson of Treaty One Nations. He's chief of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation, and he's on Zoom with us to talk about it. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy, and good morning, Winnipeg.
So you have this huge development underway. How do you feel about the widening of Kenaston? How will you be impacted?
Well, I mean, obviously we're really happy and to be finally at this point of development on our site at Nawi-Odina. But in terms of the Kenaston planning, we've been 100% on board, seeing this both as an opportunity and also as an environmental responsibility, because it's not just the road expansion that we're looking at. We'll be looking at separating that combined sewer system, which will help keep and reduce the pollution that's flowing into our waterway. So there's a combination here that's happening with the widening Kenaston. It's not just a matter of including the 3 to 6 lanes or whatever it is, because I leave that to the engineers and the people that are going to be helping us move that project forward. But at the end of the day, my understanding is that for Treaty One, this is about participation, partnership, and ensuring that our workforce is a part of the expansion. So I think it's kind of a win-win. But at the same time, we're no different. We've sat in the traffic as well, waiting to advance through that property.
Tell me a little bit about the actual land, because what does the proposed plan mean for your partnership with the city and the land they'll have to take from you up there?
We have the land itself has already been set aside. Currently we're working on doing a land exchange of roughly about 10 acres, dollar for dollar, and to meet the infrastructure needs and identified within our services agreement discussions. And of course, the goal is to ensure that we have the equal economic value to our property, and we want to ensure that this advances forward. And ideally, to be honest, it would be good if the expansion of Kenaston Highway was to happen sooner than later, because we're just at the early stages of developing a couple of our properties right now, and we need to ensure that this expansion would have minimal impact on access to our sites.
And some of the things you're working on right now are housing. People might not recall, but the federal government, when they set aside the sites for where they're going to have more affordable housing built in Winnipeg, some of that is happening right as part of your development plans, right?
That we're working on with the federal announcement there. The properties that were a part of the announcement recently are under the Canada Lands Corporation. That isn't part of the whole area being called Nawi-Odina, but the CLC, Canada Lands Company portion, is the ones that was identified as housing. For our site, we're expanding our development on Block A into retail and office space currently. So those are things that, again, like I said before, we want to make sure that these developments are advanced quickly and also take into consideration access into our sites and whatever it is we require for traffic lights and so on. So we're really eager to get this process underway.
That's going to be important because the construction will be long and potentially years. What are the feelings around around your group, around your office about the plans moving forward?
Like I said, we're it's a land exchange. We've been meeting with the city and we've been identifying areas that they have identified. Obviously, the lands at Nawi-Odina, the former Capion Barracks, are very valuable lands. So it's been, we've been identifying sites. We've been working with the city and trying to find areas that would be, reflective of that value. So, for us, we just want to make sure that when we do the exchange, that those lands are suitable for economic development as well, because that's our main priority on the site.
I know that sometimes I'll see events already set up on the land. Like I know you guys are building, as you said, like the spaces, the mixed use, as you said, in retail and such. But I'll see sometimes there'll be like bouncy castles. I'll hear concerts sort of floating through this neighborhood when you guys are having celebrations at Nawi-Odina. But one of the big things is there's a new gas station here. The Odina gas station opened at the end of June. Now that's not fronting Kenaston. It's up around, I think, Taylor. How's the business been, though, just while we have you on to check on that?
The business has been great, and we like to just acknowledge the Winnipeg community. I'm going to assume the Tuxedo River Heights residents. The really interesting fact: we have 60% of our our clientele, our people that come to, our customers that come to the Oona Gas Bar are non-First Nation that coming from the surrounding area. So that's a really good sign. Again, like I've been stating this over and over to people that'll listen in terms of, your individual acts of reconciliation is just as simple as coming and filling up at our gas station. In our future sites where we have restaurants and we'll have other businesses available. Again, we welcome all residents of Winnipeg, and we also know that the developments on those sites will employ all different backgrounds. So again, it's been really just as this first development has gone underway, it's a really big indicator of the support that we have in the area, but also the opportunities for employment.
Appreciate your time this morning, Chief. Thank you so much for being with us and weighing in.
Miigwech, Marcy, and everybody take care.
Chief Gordon Blue Sky is the Treaty 1 chairperson and chief of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation. Wanted to include their voice because, of course, they are in development of Nawa-Udena right now, which is just outside the window here up Kenaston. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It is 10 degrees. Expect rain this morning, about 5 to 10 millimeters. Periods of rain continuing through the evening and then showers tomorrow. So a couple of wet days. Still warmer than seasonal, though. Today's high is 11. 2 men are shaken and recovering after being shot in an armed robbery at their home-based jewelry business in the Maples. It happened last week. Rajan Dalla runs the store. He was shot 7 times during the robbery.
This pain is a worst pain in the life. Too much pain. I can't sleep from the 3 days, for the pain.
Dalla says he was told by a doctor a shot near his groin could have been fatal. He also says the thieves made off with almost $1 million in gold. He says his family is traumatized and feels so unsafe they want to return to their home country. The Winnipeg Police Major Crimes Unit is investigating. A local anti-domestic violence advocate says victims need more protection. Lauren Proto knows Winnipegger Clint Levesque, whose daughter Claire was murdered by her boyfriend in Scotland. Yesterday, Aaron Pearson was sentenced to at least 25 years behind bars. Proto learned about audio shared at trial in which Pearson admits to hitting Claire on her 24th birthday.
Then you hear Claire respond saying, "You're going to kill me," and then ending that conversation with, "I love you." That is the cycle of domestic violence, where they have you so trapped and so confused, you don't even know how to get out.
The couple had lived in Edmonton before moving to the remote part of Scotland in 2023. Proto says Canada needs a domestic violence registry where people can see if their partner has a history. Health ministers from across the country are in Calgary for 2 days of meetings. Interprovincial credential recognition, funding agreements, mental health and addiction issues, as well as vaccination programs could all be up for discussion. The ministers are also set to meet with national doctors and nurses organizations. Manitoba's child and youth advocate says the province needs to do more to reduce the harm wildfires cause young people. This past summer, the province recorded its worst wildfire season in decades. About 32,000 people were forced to leave their homes for weeks at a time. Many evacuees were families with children and teens. Sherry Gott says some had to stay in large shelters in places like Winnipeg.
Living in congregate settings is not ideal for children. There's no privacy. They are in settings with other adults, other people that they probably don't know.
Gott says the province needs to do more to prevent fires from threatening communities in the first place. The former CTV and CBC reporter hired to run Manitoba's U.S. trade office is earning $387,000 a year. Richard Madden was hired in June to lead the province's trade office in Washington, D.C. Premier Wab Kinew's office has disclosed Madden's salary 3 months after CBC News filed a Freedom of Information request to learn his compensation. Madden's salary is part of an $800,000 annual budget for the D.C. trade office. Madden will earn more than Wab Kinew this year and close to what the Prime Minister will earn in Ottawa. Well, the walls are coming down at Portage Place. Excavators ripping out the insides of the shopping mall, and now a gaping hole in what used to be its atrium at the section of Portage and Edmonton. Sean Cavanaugh at True North Real Estate Development says the mall was like a wall dividing the two sides of downtown.
One of the architectural concepts is to open things up again so that there's a connection with Ellis and Central Park and the rest of the downtown. You can feel both sides of the downtown.
Cavanaugh says both sides of Edmonton Street will eventually be reconnected. True North Realty plans to transform Portage Place into a medical tower and a residence. The work is scheduled to be complete in 2028. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather Wells, for the morning. Let me thank Heather Wells properly here, who's here each and every morning with our news and as it develops, always with the very latest. Also to Megan Ketchison and Alana Cole in our news department, to our producers Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson, and then to our live team, Sierra Sanders, really helping us out this morning with our live show. Thank you, Sierra. Huge thanks to Corey Funk, who's always running around doing all kinds of things behind the scenes. Incredible. I can't work without him. Abby Adeyemi, same thing, back at the ranch, behind the controls, and Darren Marash, also our producer of YouTube. So thanks to all of our team, small and mighty, getting it done. Okay, last look at the weather here. Cloudy, 10 degrees, as we've been saying. Get ready for the rain. It sure is clouding over out now through the windows here. I can see at Stella's, Kenaston and Grant. That rain's going to start, and then it's going to dump 5 to 10 millimeters, and it's going to dump 5 to 10 millimeters more potentially tonight. Risk of a thunderstorm along the way. Temperature around 11, as we've said, for Winnipeg. Brandon, also with light rain right now. You're on the same path as we are with the storm. And then Thompson, the rain doesn't reach you until probably Friday night. So for the next couple days, you're going to be cloudy, or today and into tomorrow morning to start. We leave you with 7 in Brandon and 5 degrees in Thompson. Abby, anything urgent to say about what's going on traffic?
Just the regular rush hour traffic already building. Give yourself extra time. Expect detours and watch out for crews on site. Just be patient around them. Remember, we still have lane squeezes around Grant Avenue near Lilac and Pemina, and ongoing construction on Abenoji Mikina. Just take care out there.
All right. Thanks very much, Abby. Thanks to everyone who weighed in today. I know we didn't get to every single comment that was shared with us on our social media, but we certainly are seeing them all. And it's not the last time we're going to talk about Kenaston and this huge project coming our way in 2027. Thank you for listening. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC, live in your community. If you have an idea for where we should be next, a community studio, a topic you'd like us to explore, let us know. 788-3205. Big thanks to Stella's at Grant and Kenaston and Rob for having us here this morning, and Scott for opening up early. Appreciate you both. Take care. Be well, Manitoba. We'll talk to you again tomorrow with another edition of Information Radio on 89.3 FM.